The purple-haired woman sternly orders Ian to stop what he is doing. Looking away, the blonde man insists on leaving while the woman in blue watches him go. A firm hand suddenly seizes her wrist, halting her movements. Ian catches her by the arm and says her name, leaving the purple-haired woman stunned.
She challenges him to proceed, but Ian reacts with genuine confusion at her suggestion.
Surrounded by flowers, Ian stares intensely and asks her to continue insulting him. The purple-haired woman is visibly revolted by his bizarre and unexpected request.
She berates him as a lunatic, questioning if her medicine was actually a mind-altering poison.
The narrator questions Ian's sanity and proposes a flashback to explain the current situation. Suddenly, a brown-haired man bursts into the room shouting Annabelle's name with frantic energy. Leonard demands she get out of bed immediately to begin her training for the dawn. Harsh voices warn her that losing the upcoming competition will doom her social status forever. Annabelle flinches under the covers as the weight of her family's expectations crushes her. Standing over her, Leonard pressures her about the risk of losing to Ian Waideros again. Sighing deeply, the purple-haired woman curses the man who always seems to best her. Leonard aggressively reminds her that her rival is a monster she must eventually overcome. With a sinister grin, he claims to be working behind the scenes for her benefit. Annabelle remains miserable in bed, while her brother laughs and promises her a title.
She realizes this world is actually a book she read in a previous life.
A chilling realization hits her. Her family's secret schemes will lead them to total ruin. Leonard continues his lecture until Annabelle finally snaps and tells him to be quiet. Indignant at her defiance, Leonard is shocked when she tells him to get out. He grabs a vase in disbelief, unable to accept her sudden change in temperament. Swing! Annabelle draws her sword with a swift and threatening motion.
She looms over Leonard with a blade, threatening to cut his hair or evict him.
With a menacing smile, she warns him that her lack of practice might cause accidents. Terrified by her aggression, Leonard trembles and begins to retreat in a panic. He shouts a hollow threat as he flees, leaving Annabelle looking thoroughly exhausted. With a weary sigh, she collapses back onto her pillow to process her situation. She stares blankly, realizing her family sees her as nothing more than a tool. Narration reveals her origins as the illegitimate child of a high-ranking noble, Marquis Avides. Gold coins represent the wealth her mother received from the Marquis after her birth. Despite her luxury, her mother remained greedy and dissatisfied with their current status. Her mother became obsessed with forcing her daughter into the Marquise's official lineage. A silhouette highlights the imperial swordsmanship competition as the only path to a noble title. Separated from the noble ladies, young Annabelle focused entirely on her martial training. She spent years training diligently in ragged clothes, fueled by her family's relentless pressure. Disgusting food serves as a reminder of the harsh and joyless life she led. Despite her immense effort, she laments always being trapped in second place behind her rival. She looks toward the back of Ian Waideros, convinced she can never surpass his skill. She imagines her life as a simple villainess, jealous of the happy main characters. The reality is worse. She is a rival burdened with over 2 decades of bad karma. Fearing a future in prison, she vows to avoid her original tragic ending at all costs. The scene shifts to the disciplined ranks of the Imperial Knights standing at attention. Ian's pink-haired friend comments on how unusually quiet things have been lately. He laughs while remembering how Annabelle used to curse at Ian every single day. While the friend finds the piece disappointing, the blonde man dismisses the idle chatter. Ian prepares to depart on his horse, ordering his companion to move out. The townspeople gather and cheer loudly as the high priest's carriage passes through the streets. Riding through town, the knights wonder if Annabelle's silence means she is planning something big. A chilling narrative introduces the concept of poisoning as a calculated and lethal strategy. Ian warns that his only mercy is found at the edge of his blade, threatening a heavy price otherwise.
Amidst the town's bustling crowd, the pink-haired man suddenly notices a familiar and unwelcome presence. He questions if Annabelle is foolishly challenging Ian to a duel right there in the public square. With a fierce expression, Annabelle charges forward, shocking Ian with her sudden and direct aggressive approach. The narration sternly proclaims that Annabelle Nadit has finally pushed her schemes much too far. Panic erupts with a loud heeing as horses rear while darts find their mark with a dull thud. Swords clash violently as Annabelle and Ian engage in a high-stakes struggle amidst the terrifying chaos. The pink-haired man watches the sudden conflict unfold with a look of utter bewilderment and alarm. Multiple darts are shown embedded in the back of Annabelle's gray tunic as she shields the bystanders. Ian stares in confusion, his voice trailing off as he tries to process her unexpected and self-sacrificing actions. The realization dawns that Annabelle has been struck by the poisoned projectiles intended for another person. The battle rages on while the white-haired high priest looks on from the background in total shock. Annabelle worries internally about her impulsive decision to intervene and how she will survive the aftermath. Knights draw their blades and shout for everyone to protect the high priest from the sudden attack. A man with freckles panics, loudly wondering if the local atheists are behind this act of terrorism. Seizing the moment, Annabelle decided to maintain her cover by pretending she was protecting the high priest. Surrounded by a floral aura, Annabelle sheathes her sword while maintaining her facade of heroic duty. She reassures the high priest of his safety, privately loading her antidote rendered the poison completely harmless. Annabelle attempts a swift exit, claiming her duty is done now that the high priest is secure. Suddenly, the high priest seizes her wrist and shouts for her to wait, stopping her in her tracks. He looks her in the eyes and identifies her by name, recognizing the daughter of the Nadit family. Annabelle offers a nervous, sweaty laugh while confirming her identity to the persistent and observant high priest. A dark thought bubble reveals her fear that the priest has uncovered her secret plot with Leonard. In a comical display of gratitude, the high priest hails her as his lifesaver for her intervention. Annabelle humbly plays along, claiming it was a great honor to protect such a respected religious figure. The high priest tearfully vows to repay the favor, while Annabelle accepts his gratitude with a smile. As she turns to leave again, a loud shout of "Wait!" echoes through the square once more. Ian firmly catches her by the arm, his gaze narrowing as he senses something is fundamentally wrong. He points out the suspicious timing of her arrival after she had been quiet for several days. Annabelle defensively denies helping him specifically, but Ian notes her behavior is completely unlike her usual self. A montage of past insults flashes by as she reflects on her history of verbal abuse toward him. Fearing his suspicion, she wonders if she should take drastic action to restore her villainous reputation. Annabelle suddenly screams a bizarre curse about finding half a cockroach inside of a sandwich. She continues her rant, wishing for parasites to shake out of his hair from pigeons flying overhead. Having restored her image, Annabelle runs off while Ian stands stunned and the pink-haired man snickers. Later at the mansion, a shirtless Ian wipes his face with a towel, looking deep in thought. He paces the room, unable to shake the feeling that the day's events were incredibly suspicious. Ian analyzes the trajectory, realizing the poisoned darts were actually aimed at him, not the high priest. The pink-haired man bursts into the room with frantic energy, calling out Ian's name with a grin. He teases Ian, asking if his distracted thoughts are currently occupied by the mysterious Annabelle. Sitting down, the friend suggests that Annabelle might be plotting to steal Ian's achievements for herself. He wonders if she saved him to ensure a fair competition, but Ian scoffs at the idea. Despite his friend's suggestion to thank her, Ian insists he could have easily dodged the attack alone. A mental image of the darts in her back haunts Ian's thoughts, despite his stubborn and dismissive words. Ian reacts with sudden indignation, demanding to know who his friend is calling cute in this situation. The pink-haired man clarifies that he was actually referring to the bizarre curse she yelled at him. Ian is left utterly bewildered, repeating the word curse with a look of genuine and intense confusion. Giggling, his friend mimics the flapping of wings while repeating the strange warning about sandwiches and pigeons. The pink-haired man smiles playfully, ending the conversation with a cheeky look toward his brooding friend.
Ian yells at his pink-haired companion to get out of his room immediately.
A heavy, ornate door slams shut with a thunderous sound as Ian vents his frustration. Standing alone in the silence, the blonde-haired man is lost in a moment of quiet introspection. As he paces in his slippers, Ian's thoughts are consumed by Annabelle's possible whereabouts. Exhausted by the day's bizarre events, Ian slumps onto a sofa and rubs his temples in weariness. Time passes in a slow blur as the blonde knight waits for the morning light to come. A sharp ding rings out as Ian pulls the bell rope to summon his brown-haired servant. Ian commands the servant to check on Annabelle's health immediately, despite the unusual and late hour. The brown-haired man is startled when Ian demands the investigation be carried out right this second. The Grand Wydros mansion stands bathed in a cool, starlit glow as the new day begins. Elsewhere, Leonard is shocked to learn that Annabelle intentionally blocked the poison dart he had prepared. Annabelle stares him down, coldly stating that he should actually be thanking her for the intervention. Looking nervous and sweating, Leonard is taken aback by her sudden defiance and unexpected strength. A sinister hee-hee echoes as Leonard decides to activate a more destructive backup plan they discussed together. A sudden explosion flares as a narrative warning announces that the hibiscus explosion plan is now active. Walking through the halls, she laments that her brother only views her as a tool for gain. A bitter memory shows Leonard gloating about noble status, while Annabelle sits alone in the cold shadows. Her red-haired mother enters the frame, her face obscured by shadows, calling out to her daughter. The woman berates young Annabelle for neglecting her training, demanding a victory in the upcoming competition. Crushed by the pressure, Annabelle stares at a contract transferring all her inheritance rights to her brother. Her mother explains the cruel transfer, threatening that failure would result in Annabelle being sold off. With a chilling smile, the red-haired woman offers a hollow promise to return the rights after victory. A scratching sound accompanies the signature as Annabelle submits, her mother praising her as a good girl. A wreath of thorny roses highlights the crushing weight of the family's expectations for her success. Under the hot sun, the purple-haired girl pushes her limits, training until she is breathless and gasping. She strikes the wooden dummy with a sharp sound, fueled by the desperate need to meet expectations. Pain flares as Annabelle discovers her palm is raw and bloodied from the intensity of her practice. Looking at her reopened wounds, she worries that she may have pushed her body too far. In the background, Leonard and her mother head out for a luxury lunch, completely ignoring her suffering. A wave of loneliness washes over her as she realizes she is truly alone in her struggle. Despite the pain, Annabelle bites down on a bandage while wrapping her hand, resolved to try harder. A single, focused thought echoes through the darkness. She must push beyond her limits to survive. Past memories shift, showing how the weight of the family's future was cruelly placed on her. A dark bubble reveals the false hope that winning the swordsmanship competition would bring the family happiness. Annabelle curses the very existence of Ian, the rival who stands between her and her family's approval. She reflects on her history of bullying him, realizing her actions were fueled by desperation and jealousy. Her family's true nature is revealed. They were simply using her to amass a mountain of gold. Walking with renewed purpose, she finally accepts that being family doesn't make their cruel actions right. With a dramatic flourish, Annabelle vows to stop living for others and find her own path. Fire burns in her eyes as she resolves to dismantle every single scheme Leonard has planned. At the Wydros Mansion training ground, knights practice their forms with rhythmic, heavy thudding sounds. After training, the pink-haired friend presents Ian with a special snack to help him recover his energy. The tray is piled high with fresh sandwiches, a special request made to the mansion's head chef.
Ian threatens his friend with a scowl, telling him to stop talking before he gets hit. Around the grounds, the other exhausted knights take a break, their idle chatter filling the dusty air.
Munching on a sandwich, the pink-haired man asks if Annabelle is currently bedridden after the dart incident.
Ian curtly dismisses the concern, leaving his companion puzzled as to how he remains so certain.
A sudden, powerful shout rings across the training ground, calling out Ian's name and breaking the peace.
Annabelle stands tall at the gates, loudly announcing her arrival to the two startled men.
Shock flickers across Ian's face as he grips his sword hilt, unable to believe her sudden presence. Ian grows restless in the silence while the pink-haired Aaron looks on with a surprised expression.
Ian and the purple-haired Annabelle face off in the courtyard, where she offers an unexpectedly polite bow.
Ian is deeply unsettled by her calm behavior, recalling how she would usually charge at him recklessly. Wary of a hidden trap, Ian draws his blade while Annabelle prepares for their inevitable duel. Sunlight bathes a delicate tea set and blooming pink roses on a serene, white-clothed table. Duchess Leslie Wydros reacts with genuine shock to the news that someone named Oscar has prepared sandwiches. Upon hearing the snacks were for the knights, the Duchess demands the maid bring her one immediately. The Duchess is outraged when the maid explains that every single sandwich was sent to the training grounds. Determined to claim her snack, the Duchess stands abruptly and resolves to head to the training grounds. A heavy clang echoes as Ian and Annabelle finally clash swords before a gathered crowd of silent knights. A knight is startled when the Duchess suddenly appears at the edge of the dusty training field. Holding a finger to her lips, the Duchess tells the knight to be quiet and watch the interesting match. Surrounded by a floral aura, the Duchess watches Annabelle with a knowing and highly satisfied smile. A flashback reveals a purple-haired infant left before a grand mansion, identified as the daughter of a fallen marquis. Clang! Annabelle struggles during the duel as narration describes her difficult history as an illegitimate child. Cling! The Duchess watches the rhythmic clashing of steel with an intense and unwavering focus. A bitter memory shows a younger Annabelle kneeling in defeat during a past swordsmanship competition. Standing over her, a young Ian recalls that her name was completely unfamiliar to him at the time. Clang! In the present, the two rivals continue their intense exchange, driven by a fierce competitive spirit. Aaron explains to the Duchess that Annabelle visits almost daily to challenge Ian to a duel. The Duchess is visibly stunned to learn that Annabelle recently acted as a guard for the High Priest. Cling! Ian effortlessly parries another strike, maintaining a look of bored and practiced superiority. The Duchess watches in disbelief, wondering if the highly skilled Ian actually missed a clear opening on purpose. Breathing heavily, Annabelle suddenly lowers her sword and announces that they should stop for the day. Ian remains suspicious, accusing her of pretending to retreat only to launch one of her many dirty tricks. In a comical moment, the Duchess is amused that her son has actually counted hundreds of Annabelle's tactics. Annabelle ignores his accusations, calmly sheathing her sword and promising to return for another duel tomorrow. Expecting a final ambush, Ian grips his hilt tightly as Annabelle begins to walk away from him. Moving close, Annabelle whispers a cryptic and urgent warning for Ian to avoid the Hibiscus Tavern tomorrow night. Ian turns back in total confusion, but Annabelle's gaze remains cold and distant as she pulls away. Refusing to elaborate on her strange warning, Annabelle continues her departure, while Ian stands there bewildered. From the sidelines, the Duchess watches the whispered exchange with a look of extreme curiosity and doubt. Annabelle suddenly turns and screams a bizarre curse about worms crawling into Ian's shoes on a rainy day. She continues her nonsensical rant about muddy carriage water while Ian stares at her in complete silence. Annabelle runs off in a panic while Ian remains frozen in shock, and the Duchess looks on. The scene shifts to the Hibiscus Tavern, standing quiet under a vast and starry night sky. Disguised in a hooded cloak,
Ian sits alone inside the tavern, reflecting on the girl's strange warning. A massive roar of the crowd fills the air as the scene shifts to a crowded arena. Ian recalls his first meeting with Annabelle 8 years ago during a high-stakes sword competition final.
The match begins with the snap of a red flag as young Annabelle charges forward with determination.
Clang! The two young prodigies lock blades for the very first time in a shower of sparks.
They trade a series of rapid, graceful strikes, each fighter refusing to give the other an inch.
Clatter. Ian successfully disarms Annabelle, sending her sword spinning away while she gasps in total shock.
Ian stands victorious and silent as the crowd erupts into cheers for the new champion.
Ian offers a polite handshake, but Annabelle responds with tearful rage, hurling insults at her victorious rival.
Back in the present, Ian realizes with a start that Annabelle's recent duel felt fundamentally different from usual. Boom! A sudden, violent explosion rips through the tavern, engulfing the room in fire and flying debris.
Chaos erupts as people scream about the explosion and the sudden collapse of the building's west wall.
A man rushes through the smoke toward Ian, frantically asking if he has been injured in the blast.
Crouched on the floor, Ian calmly confirms he is fine while staring at the destruction with grim realization.
Ian stares in shock at the destroyed tavern wall, realizing the terrible scale of the sudden explosion.
Looking at the debris, the blonde man recalls Annabelle's specific warning and realizes she saved his life. Ian sprints through the dark city streets, his mind racing as he wonders how she knew about the collapse.
Driven by urgent concern, Ian resolves to find Annabelle immediately before a familiar voice calls out to him.
Bathed in soft moonlight, the purple-haired girl sits peacefully upon a tree branch, surrounded by a magical atmosphere. Startled by her presence, the blonde man looks up as Annabelle mockingly asks if he was searching for her.
High above the ground, the purple-haired girl gazes down with a cold expression, while a tense silence follows.
Breaking the quiet, Annabelle suddenly shouts an insult at the blonde swordsman, her face flushed with defensive rage. Ian stands bewildered beneath the tree, looking up at his rival who seems far more energetic than a sick person. The blonde man remains stunned by her erratic behavior, barely able to utter a word in his confused state.
Annabelle mockingly questions his intelligence before deciding she has had enough of their strange and awkward night encounter.
A quick talk sounds as the girl's brown boot makes contact with Ian's foot in a petty strike.
Pointing an accusing finger, Annabelle screams a bizarre curse about stubbed toes and dangling toenails at the bewildered Ian.
Annabelle flees the scene in a frantic rush, leaving a completely dazed Ian standing alone in the dark courtyard. Ian recovers his senses and shouts for the fleeing girl to stay, but she continues running away into the night.
Turning around with a sharp look of surprise, the blonde man finds himself face to face with a mysterious hooded figure.
The hooded man greets him calmly, while a relieved Ian confirms that he is unharmed after the tavern blast. Lowering his hood, the silver-haired Prince Robert reveals his identity and expresses genuine relief that Ian is safe. The Hibiscus Tavern stands quiet and shadowed under the vast starry night sky, bearing the scars of the explosion. Inside a stone hallway, Robert explains that the blast was a deliberate terrorist attack intended to assassinate him. Despite his attempt at a secret meeting, Robert admits his royal identity was compromised by those seeking his death. With a cheerful smile, the silver-haired prince notes that a master swordsman like Ian wouldn't be targeted so simply. Ian grows serious, admitting that he only survived because someone gave him a precise warning about the danger beforehand. Intrigued by the news, Robert wonders who could have possibly known enough about the secret plot to warn Ian. The silver-haired prince is visibly shocked when Ian reveals that the source of the warning was Annabelle Nadit. Robert falls into a pensive silence, processing the implications of the Marquise's daughter helping the high-ranking prince. Robert recalls the cold political nature of the Marquise's faction, knowing his own brother is constantly plotting his murder. Ian remains skeptical, noting that Annabelle has no logical political reason to save a member of the opposing faction.
Looking at Ian with a knowing gaze, Robert asks if he truly understands the cruel way the Marquis treats her. A bitter memory shows the Marquis discarding Annabelle's mother, while her greedy half-brother, Leonard, stole her money. Recalling her family's betrayal, Robert suggests that Annabelle has every reason to turn against her cruel father's interests. Robert concludes that regardless of her motives, her intervention was a lucky stroke that saved both of their lives. Ian reflects on Annabelle's tragic family history, still struggling to understand her strange and sudden political shift. The prince calls out to Ian, his tone shifting as a new idea seems to take root in his mind. With a bright and cheerful smile, Prince Robert requests that Ian bring Annabelle along to their next meeting. Ian's face contorts in absolute shock and disbelief at the prince's bizarre request to meet his volatile rival. In a separate room, Leonard and his companion pace back and forth, consumed by a wave of nervous anxiety. The door swings open as a weary Annabelle finally returns home, her expression tired after the eventful night. Leonard rushes toward his sister, frantically asking if her destructive plan finally succeeded in eliminating their rival, Ian. With a blunt and unimpressed expression, the purple-haired girl informs her horrified brother that the explosion plan failed. Annabelle dismissively claims the bomb was too weak, bragging that she could have easily dodged such a simple trap. She offers a hollow promise of future opportunities to appease Leonard while secretly feeling relieved the plan was foiled. Silhouettes reveal the gravity of the situation. If the explosion had killed Prince Robert, the fallout would be catastrophic. A hanging noose symbolizes the grim fate Annabelle avoided. A successful assassination would have led to her own execution. Lying in bed, the purple-haired girl sighs as she reflects on the unexpected friendship between Ian and the prince. Annabelle's anxiety grows as she realizes her accurate warning will likely lead to an interrogation the very next day. She vividly imagines Ian and Robert confronting her with fiery anger, demanding to know how she gained the information. Frustrated and overwhelmed by the consequences of her own actions, Annabelle kicks her legs and tries to forget everything. Annabelle collapses face down on the bed, resolving to simply yell at anyone who tries to nag her for answers. The morning sun rises as a luxurious green carriage arrives, signaling the start of a very difficult new day. Annabelle is visibly startled to learn that a sudden visitor has arrived to see her. A pink-haired man introduces himself with a polite smile as Aaron Rainfield. Recognizing him as Ian's adjutant, Annabelle worries he has come because of the recent tavern explosion. Gathering her composure, the purple-haired girl bluntly asks Aaron what business brings him to her home. Aaron offers a radiant and cheerful smile, seemingly unfazed by Annabelle's cold and defensive questioning. He explains that Lady Leslie wishes to see her and that he has come to serve as her escort. Annabelle is struck by a wave of nervous realization, knowing Lady Leslie is the Duchess and Ian's mother. A luxurious green carriage rattles along the path, signaling the start of a tense and unexpected journey. Inside the carriage, a nervous Annabelle sits across from the cheerful Aaron as he hums a light tune. She grows increasingly anxious, wondering if the Duchess is seeking retribution for her recent and bizarre public curses. The purple-haired girl shifts uncomfortably under Aaron's steady gaze, her mind racing with various worst-case scenarios. Breaking the silence, Aaron admits that he found her old curses crude, but has a different opinion now. Surrounded by a floral aura, he claims that everything after her sandwich curse has been a creative gem. Aaron notes he has been very impressed with her recent training, while Annabelle watches him with deep suspicion. He reiterates his newfound appreciation for her insults, finding her recent verbal barbs to be surprisingly high quality. With an enthusiastic gesture, the pink-haired man admits he doesn't want to miss a single word she says. Annabelle is left utterly speechless and bewildered by the adjutant's strange and unexpected praise for her hostility. A brief memory of Ian holding his sword highlights the normal competitive pressure she usually faces from their rivalry.
Annabelle sharply clarifies that she isn't Ian's subordinate before asking Aaron about the specific nature of his business.
Aaron mentions a special lunch invitation and proudly reveals that his own father prepared the entire meal.
The girl's eyes widen in shock when she learns that Aaron's father is the legendary Oscar Rainfield. Aaron asks if she recognizes the name, noting the chef's widespread fame throughout the entire empire. A decorative frame highlights the prestige of Rainfield Restaurant, known as the most elite establishment in the land.
Aaron is baffled, noting that even Annabelle's mother and brother were frequent guests at his father's restaurant. Annabelle falls into a quiet, pensive state as she processes the cultural weight of the invitation she received.
With twin thumbs up, Aaron excitedly urges her to just taste the food, promising she will love it. Despite the prestige, Annabelle worries if she can actually manage to eat normally while sitting before the Duchess. Her eyes spark with sudden determination as she shouts her confidence, won over by the promise of gourmet food. A magnificent spread of expertly prepared meats and delicacies rests upon the table, gleaming with culinary perfection. Resting her chin on her hand, Duchess Leslie observes with a subtle smile that the food suits Annabelle's taste. The Duchess explains she hired Oscar immediately upon becoming a Duchess, while Annabelle eats with pure, starry-eyed delight. Oscar Rainfield enters the room with practiced grace, presenting the main dish with the poise of a master. With a look of intense focus, the pink-haired chef carves the meat with a display of dazzling blade skill. Oscar serves a top-grade ribeye steak to a stunned Annabelle, who watches his expert movements with total awe. The Duchess lightheartedly mentions that both Aaron and his mother, Marilyn, are exceptionally skilled with knives and swords.
Annabelle is overwhelmed by the flavor, tearfully comparing the meal to the frozen monster meat she usually eats.
Duchess Leslie is horrified to learn that the Marquise's daughter has been eating low-grade monster meat from the forest. The Duchess and Aaron stare in shocked silence, realizing the full extent of the neglect Annabelle suffered at home.
Annabelle defensively explains that her family ate the cheap yeeper meat for all 3 meals every single day.
In a comical moment, the Duchess and Oscar are visibly appalled by the girl's tragic and meager upbringing. She continues her explanation, mentioning that her family occasionally sent leftover food to her room as a treat. The Duchess's expression shifts to one of deep pity and disbelief at the Marquis's cruel treatment of his daughter. Oscar looks pained and deeply offended as a chef, struggling to comprehend such a terrible and repetitive diet. Reaching out, the Duchess hands Annabelle a VIP ticket to Rainfield Restaurant to ensure she never goes hungry. Duchess Leslie erupts in a protective rage, screaming that anyone who fails to feed a child properly is trash. A delicate stream of tea is poured into a gold-rimmed cup, signaling a shift to a more serious topic. Setting her cup aside, the Duchess smiles and suggests that they finally get to the main point of their meeting. Annabelle's hands tremble as she grips her teacup, sensing the atmosphere becoming heavy with a looming interrogation. The Duchess asks why she saved Ian, causing a panicked Annabelle to spit her tea out in total shock. Flustered and blushing, Annabelle frantically tries to claim there has been a massive misunderstanding about her recent actions. Connecting the clues from the priest's escort and the pub terror, Duchess Leslie begins to form a logical conclusion.
The Duchess directly asks if Annabelle saved Ian, prompting the purple-haired girl to frantically deny any positive relationship between them.
Annabelle is stunned into silence when Lady Leslie reveals she witnessed her warning Ian at the training grounds. Lady Leslie calmly admits that while she isn't a master, she possesses enough skill to sense the flow of qi. With a piercing gaze, the Duchess asks Annabelle to explain exactly what happened during those life-threatening events. Looking down, Annabelle finally confesses that she accidentally discovered the horrific plot to use explosives at the pub. Duchess Leslie correctly identifies Marquis Abedes as the mastermind behind the attack, noting the specific danger posed to her son. A loud thud echoes through the hall as a hand suddenly forces the heavy door wide open.
Ian Waiteros storms into the room, demanding to know if his mother actually dared to invite Annabelle into their home.
Ian insults his rival by calling her a rascal, causing Annabelle's temper to flare with sudden, visible fury.
Annabelle slams her hand onto the table, standing up to shout that Ian's dismissive attitude is completely unfair.
With fire in her eyes, the purple-haired girl declares that she is the only person permitted to hurt Ian.
She rants about her frustration that Ian was injured clumsily before she could properly defeat him herself in a duel. Realizing she just shouted her secret competitive obsession aloud, Annabelle freezes while the Duchess watches with a curious smile.
Lady Leslie claps her hands in delight, finding Annabelle's fierce desire for a fair victory to be absolutely wonderful.
Against a radiant background, the Duchess proclaims that Annabelle possesses the true chivalric spirit prized by the Waiteros family. Lady Leslie finds the girl's romantic goal of defeating an opponent at their peak condition to be purely honorable.
While Annabelle laughs nervously and tries to play along, a skeptical Ian attempts to interject and correct his mother.
The Duchess's expression turns cold as she notes the unpleasant feeling of constantly being reminded of her son's second-place status.
As the atmosphere grows heavy, Ian and Annabelle exchange a glance, sensing the Duchess's sudden shift in mood.
Seizing a moment of petty revenge, Annabelle sticks her tongue out at Ian, who reacts with a twitch of pure irritation. Bolting upright, the purple-haired girl prepares to make her exit after the bizarrely intense lunch session.
Annabelle points a finger at Ian, claiming that while the food was great, she must leave him with a small curse.
Her curse involves Ian singing power ballads in the shower for Aaron to hear, leaving the blonde swordsman deeply disturbed.
Annabelle begins to walk away, but Lady Leslie calls after her with a soft, lingering gaze.
The Duchess wonders aloud if her comments about parenting were too harsh, watching Annabelle's departing figure.
Suddenly, Lady Leslie catches Annabelle's hands, stopping her departure with an urgent and determined expression.
Surrounded by floating macarons, the Duchess insists that Annabelle cannot possibly leave without taking some gourmet dessert with her. Holding the large white box, a confused and blushing Annabelle offers a quiet, stuttering thank you for the gift.
The pink-haired Aaron Rainfield worries that she might not like the flavors, but Annabelle frantically waves off his concerns.
Feeling overwhelmed by the sudden kindness, Annabelle stares at her gift, questioning if she truly deserves such luxurious treatment.
Aaron offers a gentle smile among the roses, urging her to accept it so that Lady Leslie can be satisfied. Brimming with joy, Annabelle clutches her dessert box and beams a genuine smile, promising to enjoy every single bite. Back at the table, a somber Ian sits across from his mother as she calmly sips her tea in silence. Lady Leslie erupts in frustration, scolding Ian for barging in and ruining her fascinating conversation with their guest. She demands to know why he ruined the mood, leaving the usually stoic blonde swordsman looking utterly bewildered and defensive. Ian's face darkens with a shadowy aura of annoyance as his mother continues to fixate on his rival. Memories of a young, blunt Ian who never cared for anyone reveal how much his current expressiveness has surprised her. The Duchess is visibly moved, finding it fun that Annabelle manages to pull so many different emotions out of her son. Leslie looks on with starry-eyed excitement at the prospect of more drama, while Ian reacts with a confused, huh? A dark aura surrounds Ian as he demands to know why his mother has suddenly become so interested in Annabelle.
Leslie imagines a cute version of Annabelle, explaining that the girl's competitive antics at the training ground were adorable.
The Duchess gushes over how lovely Annabelle's curses are, but Ian's jaw drops in absolute shock at her bizarre taste. Shuddering with visible disgust, Ian vehemently denies being the type of person who enjoys being insulted or cursed at.
Ian stands up abruptly, shouting that he and Annabelle will never meet again once the tournament concludes.
Duchess Leslie remains calm, questioning his claim while Ian continues his heated, frustrated rant about his rival. With a cold and serious look,
The Duchess declares that they must indeed go their separate ways from now on.
Ian is left stunned and confused by her sudden agreement, running a hand through his hair in a fit of frustration.
Leslie grips her teacup tightly, her voice low as she admits that the purple-haired girl is constantly on her mind.
The Duchess's expression turns somber as she reflects on the heartbreaking fact that Annabelle was forced to eat low-grade meat.
Annabelle watches with a pensive expression, feeling she can no longer remain a passive observer to the situation.
At the tea table, Duchess Leslie questions Ian's words, her orange eyes narrowing with a look of maternal suspicion.
A sudden realization hits Ian, causing him to freeze as a sharp bolt of tension crackles through the room.
Ian's hand trembles and clenches into a tight fist as he processes the annoying frequency of their unexpected encounters.
Pushing back his chair, Ian stands abruptly, catching the Duchess by surprise as the weight of the conversation shifts.
With a determined stride, the blonde swordsman walks away, declaring his intent to clear his head through intense training.
Left alone, Duchess Leslie blinks in confusion, offering a distracted response to her son's sudden departure from their tea.
Taking a quiet sip of tea, the Duchess muses to herself about the mysterious and incomprehensible nature of her son.
The cheerful Aaron Rainfield bursts into the room, his pink hair vibrant as he responds to the Duchess's summons.
Leslie explains she has much to discuss, prompting Aaron to pump his fists with an eager and enthusiastic grin.
The scene shifts to the bright, sun-drenched gardens, where an exclamation of pure shock rings out across the lawn. While walking through the garden, Aaron looks pained to hear about Ian's uncharacteristic huffing and puffing at the training grounds. The Duchess asks Aaron to visit the boutique tomorrow to pick out a special gift for the deserving Annabelle. Leslie's eyes sparkle as she envisions a transformed Annabelle, dressed in a stunning gown surrounded by beautiful blooming flowers.
Noticing Aaron's hesitation, the Duchess playfully asks if the boutique is too busy to accommodate her urgent request for tomorrow.
Aaron looks down with a bead of sweat, struggling to find the right words to explain his true plans. A silver locket rests among cotton flowers, revealing a picture of a purple-haired baby on his sister's Memorial Day. The Duchess is taken aback, her hand covering her mouth in shock as she hears the reason for Aaron's schedule. A wave of realization washes over Lady Leslie as she remembers the significance of the date Aaron just mentioned.
Offering a gentle and understanding smile, Aaron reassures the Duchess that everything is fine despite the somber nature of tomorrow.
Steam rises around Ian as he relaxes in a flower-filled bath, trying to wash away the stress of the day. Slumping in the tub, the blonde swordsman groans as he recalls Annabelle's embarrassing shower singing and Aaron's unwitting audience. A sudden, sharp creak echoes through the silent hallway as a white-slippered foot steps carefully across the wooden floor.
Dressed and pacing his room, Ian's thoughts remain fixated on the unresolved mysteries of the recent hibiscus terror attack.
He vividly remembers Annabelle's fiery declaration that she is the only person allowed to cause him any physical harm. Pausing mid-step, Ian wonders if his purple-haired rival was actually being serious during her intense competitive outburst at lunch. Ian sits alone on his bed, muttering his hatred for Annabelle, while a dark, brooding aura surrounds his blonde head.
A grim vision of a battered and bandaged Annabelle flashes through his mind, causing him to worry about her safety.
"That can't happen!" Ian shouts, standing up in a panic at the thought of his rival being seriously injured. Crossing his arms, he grumbles that an injured Annabelle would mean he could never have a proper, fair duel. A soft smile touches Ian's lips as he finally begins to understand the perspective and motivations behind Annabelle's competitive words. High above the city, a large, glowing full moon illuminates the night sky as carrier pigeons fly through the clouds. Awakened by a sharp whistle, Ian sits up in bed and spots a white bird perched at his window. Approaching the window, Ian recognizes the carrier pigeon as belonging to the royal household of Prince Robert. He carefully unrolls a small scroll from the bird's leg,
suspecting it contains vital information regarding the recent terror plot.
What? Ian exclaims in total shock, his eyes widening as he reads the unexpected contents of the prince's secret message. Ian's face hardens into a look of serious concentration as he continues to process the prince's strange and specific request. The prince's letter requests that Ian bring Annabelle to a meeting at a specific table in the red brick house. Reaching for his writing supplies, Ian prepares to draft a quick response to the prince's potentially dangerous and puzzling invitation. A loud thud sounds as Ian settles into his desk chair, his expression focused and grim as he begins writing. The sound of the pen scratching against paper fills the quiet room as Ian meticulously writes his reply to Robert. Ian pens a warning that Annabelle rarely listens to his instructions, suggesting the prince should manage his expectations accordingly. A lingering thought haunts the darkness, questioning if the prince intended to meet with the purple-haired girl alone. The morning sun rises over a beautiful brick house where the peaceful chirping of birds signals the start of a new day. Annabelle enjoys a delightful breakfast, blushing with pure happiness as she tastes the sweetness of a fresh morning strawberry.
Sparkles surround her as she looks at the prince's invitation, debating whether or not she should actually attend the meeting.
A bitter memory of her parents celebrating her brother's birthday while ignoring her entirely flashes through Annabelle's mind. A creak sounds as she opens a door, reflecting on how her family never once bothered to celebrate her own birthday. Laughing off the past, she optimistically declares that she will simply find herself a handsome boyfriend by this time next year.
Annabelle's eyes widen in shock as she enters the room and finds the brown-haired Prince Robert already waiting for her.
The brown-haired laird holds a teacup, greeting Annabelle as she arrives exactly on time for their scheduled meeting. Annabelle, her purple hair tied back, stares back with a confused and uncertain expression at Laird's welcoming remark. Laird gestures toward a gift box on the table, offering Annabelle her inheritance rights as a sudden incentive. Laird panics when Annabelle prepares to leave, questioning her lack of training as the swordsmanship tournament quickly approaches. Annabelle scoffs at his worry, pointing out that Ian Waitrose trains daily and deserves his top-tier status. Boiling with irritation, the purple-haired girl scolds Laird for his laziness, demanding he put in more effort than his rival. Reaching out with an open palm, Annabelle commands Laird's attention with a sharp and authoritative tone. Annabelle demands her money immediately, leaving Laird sputtering in shock at her blunt and transactional attitude toward their agreement. Gripping the inheritance document tightly, Annabelle reflects on the legal rights Laird has just signed over to her. Laird laughs off her intensity, promising that all the wealth will be hers if she secures first place in the tournament. A dark, murderous aura surrounds Annabelle as she considers whether it would be simpler to just cut Laird down where he sits. Annabelle closes her eyes and exhales, deciding to tolerate Laird's presence solely because he is marginally better than her own family. A cold memory of her purple-haired relatives turning their backs on her reinforces Annabelle's decision to distance herself from them. A sudden, sharp clearing of her throat punctuates the silence as Annabelle offers Laird one final chance to remember the current date. With a playful wink, she prompts Laird to guess what today is, hoping for some shred of personal recognition. Laird guesses wildly, wondering if it's the day of a tournament announcement, while Annabelle's hope begins to wither. An icy chill settles over Annabelle as she bluntly reveals that today is her birthday, her eyes filled with disappointment. Laird is momentarily stunned, realizing his mistake as a bead of sweat rolls down his nervous face. Laird quickly dismisses the birthday as a trivial yearly event, prioritizing the finality of the upcoming tournament instead. Despising his coldness, Annabelle glares at the useless trash, deciding to drop the sentimentality and just take the money. Laird suddenly brightens, claiming he actually prepared a special gift in honor of her birthday celebration. Annabelle's eyes widen in horror as Laird reveals he obtained a forbidden item specifically designed to cripple Ian Waitrose. Smug and self-satisfied, Laird asks if she is happy with his devious plan, while Annabelle trembles with unspoken rage. Laird prides himself on his supposed genius,
unaware that Annabelle is clenching her fists in a fit of pure fury. The scene shifts to the luxurious Rainfield restaurant, where a stunned Annabelle marvels at the grand and opulent architecture.
Approaching the entrance, Annabelle looks around in awe, praising Lord Oscar for the incredible success of his establishment.
A mysterious figure in a brown cloak approaches from the shadows, extending a hand toward the surprised girl.
Startled by the sudden intrusion, Annabelle demands to know the identity of the silver-haired stranger.
The cloaked man moves to lower his hood, beginning a formal introduction to ease her visible suspicion.
A message reveals the man's identity as Robert Narodos Hymiran, the individual Annabelle rescued during the previous night's events.
Lowering his hood, the handsome, silver-haired Prince Robert offers a warm and charming smile to his savior.
Annabelle is left speechless, finally recognizing the royal status of the man standing before her in the garden.
Prince Robert graciously asks to join Annabelle for a meal, gesturing toward the restaurant with an inviting hand.
Annabelle enthusiastically agrees to the lunch date, thrilled at the prospect of saving her precious meal ticket for later.
A polite waiter bows low, welcoming the pair to the third branch of the prestigious Rainfield restaurant.
Annabelle follows the waiter to their table, still processing the sheer scale and beauty of the interior decor.
Prince Robert and Annabelle settle into their seats by a large window, framed by a cascade of beautiful white flowers. Noticing the golden cutlery sparkling on the table, Annabelle marvels at the extreme luxury of the prince's lifestyle. The restaurant's atmosphere highlights a unique equality where nobles and commoners dine together amidst a backdrop of vibrant blue roses. Reviewing the menu, Prince Robert suggests the third course option with a friendly and helpful demeanor.
A quick gasp escapes Annabelle as she notices course number 3 is by far the most expensive item listed.
Annabelle beams a bright smile at Robert, internally marveling at the effortless generosity of his high-born diamond spoon status.
A perfectly grilled steak arrives, garnished with fresh rosemary, lemons, and asparagus, radiating an irresistible aroma. Surrounded by sparkles, an excited Annabelle clutches her utensils, her eyes wide with the desire to dig in immediately. Annabelle pauses with her fork and knife raised, listening intently as the prince prepares to speak.
Prince Robert clasps his hands with a serious look, stating he has an important matter to discuss before they begin. At the palace training grounds, the rhythmic sound of wooden swords clashing fills the air as soldiers undergo practice.
With a powerful swing, the blonde-haired Ian Wydros shatters a training dummy, his movements precise and devastating.
Ian stands stoically in his training attire, his sharp eyes reflecting his intense focus and dedication to his craft.
Looking off into the distance, the blonde swordsman remains deep in thought, his expression hard and unreadable.
Ian feels an unusual sense of emptiness at the training grounds as he reflects on his daily routine. He remembers how Annabelle used to aggressively challenge him to fights around this time in the past.
Ian scolds himself for lingering on thoughts of his rival while he tries to maintain his stoic focus. Aaron approaches the blonde knight, noting how slowly time passes without the usual excitement of an unexpected event.
Excitedly, the pink-haired knight claims Annabelle has finally included him in her list of those to be cursed. Ian recalls his mother's playful nature, wondering if Aaron's strange excitement stems from her influence or a misunderstanding.
Aaron enthusiastically explains his plan to master stealth skills to meet Annabelle's high expectations during their future encounters.
Ian is appalled, questioning why the knight would so confidently admit to planning an intrusion into his private bathroom.
A sudden sound causes Ian to turn around sharply, his expression shifting to one of intense and sudden surprise. A brown-haired man runs through the gates shouting for Aaron, his frantic pace signaling a moment of true urgency.
The messenger informs Aaron of a crisis at his restaurant, prompting the pink-haired knight to ask for immediate details. While Aaron and the messenger whisper, Ian feels a sense of relief mixed with confusion that Annabelle wasn't involved. Aaron informs Ian that he must depart for the Rainfield restaurant immediately, prompting Ian to ask if it's serious. Ian stares in total disbelief as he processes the gravity of the situation that has suddenly interrupted their training. Aaron reveals the sudden arrival of royalty at the establishment, expressing his deep concern over the unexpected and high-profile visit. Since his parents are away at the beach, Aaron determines he must go to the restaurant as the family representative. As Aaron prepares to leave, Ian calls out for him to wait, his mind quickly formulating a protective plan. Ian firmly decides to accompany Aaron to the restaurant, leaving the pink-haired knight momentarily stunned by his sudden resolution.
At the restaurant, Prince Robert tells Annabelle that he has an important matter to discuss as they sit together. Annabelle immediately asks if the silver-haired prince has uncovered the truth behind the recent hibiscus terror plot they faced.
With a gentle smile, Robert explains that he simply wanted to personally express his gratitude for her recent assistance.
Startled by the unexpected sentiment, Annabelle questions why the prince is thanking her while she holds her cutlery mid-meal. Robert notes that her tip through Ian saved him, reflecting sadly on the complicated and dangerous nature of royal bloodlines. Annabelle considers the political landscape, realizing the prince won't press her for information sources given his current precarious standing.
Recalling a dark alternate fate for the prince, Annabelle feels relieved and dismisses his thanks with a casual, polite wave.
Robert laments the disgrace of brothers turning against each other, his expression turning somber as he reflects on his family. As they eat, Robert asks if Annabelle's relationship with her own brother is similarly fraught with tension and conflict.
Annabelle scoffs internally at the idea of her greedy brother, masking her disdain with a polite laugh and a rumor. Turning her attention to the staff, Annabelle admires the handsome waiters as they move efficiently through the grand dining room.
Annabelle humorously considers choosing one of the handsome waiters to be her new family, while Robert watches her suspiciously.
Robert admits he initially planned a larger meeting with Ian and another guest, but decided a private meal was better.
When Annabelle asks why he changed his mind, Robert explains he didn't want her to feel burdened by the politics. Noticing the whispers of nearby diners, Annabelle asks the prince if he is comfortable being seen in public with her.
Robert offers a warm, welcoming smile, assuring Annabelle that she is fully entitled to be his guest at the restaurant.
He chuckles, mentioning that Ian refused the invitation because the blonde knight clearly harbors a deep personal dislike for him.
Robert leans in with a charming gaze, declaring that he finds Annabelle to be a truly fascinating and interesting person.
Despite his charm, Annabelle warns herself not to be deceived by the prince's handsome face as she clutches her glass. Narrative panels reveal Robert's true nature as a calculating politician who only acts for personal benefit and royal power gains. Robert suggests they maintain a close relationship, while Annabelle silently resolves to keep a safe distance from his political schemes.
The prince calls for dessert, sparking a moment of pure excitement in Annabelle as she eagerly anticipates the upcoming sweets.
While they debate between cake and ice cream, Annabelle casually reveals to the prince that today is actually her birthday.
Robert is genuinely taken aback by the news, looking at the menu with a renewed sense of purpose and surprise.
He warmly suggests they order a special celebratory drink to go along with their cake to mark the special occasion. Annabelle is horrified to see the price of the wheelchair, realizing it costs significantly more than their entire luxury meal.
Despite her shock, she agrees to the prince's recommendation, though she admits she'll likely forget the fancy wine's name.
Annabelle takes a cautious sip of the expensive red wine, its aroma filling the air as she tests the flavor. Her eyes light up with joy as she discovers the wine is wonderfully sweet and easy to drink like juice.
Robert raises his glass in a formal toast, once again thanking Annabelle for the significant role she played in his safety.
The pair clinks their glasses together in a quiet celebration, the sound of crystal ringing out in the elegant restaurant. Thrilled by her first ever birthday celebration, Annabelle offers the prince a uniquely bizarre wish: to never be bitten by mosquitoes.
Touched by her simple kindness, Prince Robert covers his mouth as he reflects on receiving such a delicate blessing.
Prince Robert admits that seeing Annabelle's struggle for familial recognition makes him feel a deep sense of shared kinship.
Narrative panels reveal Robert's humble origins as the son of a foreign dancer who lacked maternal political support.
Despite gaining the Emperor's favor, Robert's silhouette reflects the heavy burden of rivals desperately plotting his ultimate downfall.
The intimate lunch is suddenly interrupted, causing the silver-haired prince to look up in visible surprise and confusion.
A furious Ian stands over the table, his eyes burning with intense anger as Annabelle gasps at his intrusion.
A sudden, sharp bam sounds as a hand slams onto the table, punctuating the blonde knight's silent, simmering rage.
A celebratory clink rings out as Annabelle ignores the tension, thanking the prince for the rare and expensive drink.
Beaming with genuine happiness, Annabelle clutches her wine glass, thrilled to finally experience her first ever celebratory birthday toast.
Ian watches her closely, his mind racing as he tries to reconcile this happy version of his reckless rival. Standing stoically between the tables, Ian and Aaron realize that the woman dining with the prince is indeed Annabelle. Annabelle looks back at the blonde knight with wide eyes, demanding to know how he arrived so suddenly.
Ian struggles to find the right words, hesitating as a few awkward sparkles surround his silent, brooding figure.
Stepping forward with a polite bow, the pink-haired Aaron Rainfield introduces himself to the royal guest and Annabelle. Aaron apologizes for his father's absence, while Robert graciously confirms that the luxury meal was absolutely excellent. When Aaron asks for her opinion, Annabelle offers a bright, wide-eyed smile and confirms the food was delicious.
Nearby noble diners begin to whisper and stare, their open curiosity creating a heavy and judgmental atmosphere.
Annabelle takes a long sip of wine, dreading the inevitable scandalous rumors that will soon flood high society. A painful memory surfaces, reminding Annabelle of how desperately she once sought love from her neglectful family members. The scene shifts to a quiet, dimly lit room where a single lantern flickers in the oppressive darkness. Within the shadows of her past, Annabelle's brother suggests a violent plot to seriously injure Ian with a bomb. The brown-haired man pushes further, asking Annabelle if she thinks using a poisoned needle would be more effective. Masking her true feelings with a forced, manic smile, Annabelle pretends to agree with her brother's malicious schemes. Back in the present, Annabelle chugs her wine with a quick gulp, determined to forget her past futile actions. Turning sharply toward the blonde knight, a defiant Annabelle asks Ian if he actually has something useful to say. Ian curtly denies having anything to say, prompting Annabelle to set her glass down with a firm, decisive clack. Annabelle issues a bold challenge, asking Ian if he is ready to face her in a proper sword duel. With a look of stoic determination, Ian agrees to the duel, accepting her challenge without any further hesitation. Excited by the prospect of exercise, Annabelle offers a confident smirk, while Ian maintains his hard, unreadable expression. To Ian's utter bewilderment, Annabelle begins chugging the rest of the expensive wine before their fight even starts. Pointing a finger with tipsy confidence, Annabelle mockingly tells Ian that his glare isn't intimidating to her at all. Her hand drops to the hilt of her sword with a metallic shink, signaling her readiness to begin the combat. Horror-struck by the impending chaos, Aaron shouts a frantic plea for them to stop their fight inside the restaurant. Aaron begs the two rivals to take their duel outside to avoid damaging his family's prestigious and expensive establishment. Realizing Aaron's concern is more about property damage than peace, Annabelle mockingly identifies the pink-haired knight as a capitalist. Amidst a background of cute red pandas, Aaron offers a backhanded cheer, promising to support Annabelle even in defeat. Ian suggests they settle their scores at their usual training spot at the Duke's mansion, surprising Annabelle with the distance. Ian dismisses her concerns about the long journey, stating that riding together on a horse will get them there quickly. Standing beside a powerful black stallion, Ian holds the reins and firmly tells Annabelle to mount the horse first. Annabelle climbs into the saddle with a heavy sigh, wondering why she is traveling so far just to lose again. The blonde knight mounts the horse directly behind her, causing Annabelle to jump in shock at their sudden proximity. Thunder and lightning reflect Annabelle's inner turmoil
as she screams internally about having to ride so closely to her rival.
The black horse charges forward with a rhythmic clatter-clop, carrying the two rivals away from the bustling restaurant.
Annabelle's face scrunches in visible distress as she feels the overwhelming discomfort of having Ian right behind her.
Ian remains focused on the path ahead, his stoic expression giving no hint of his thoughts during the close ride.
Annabelle grumbles about their constant physical contact as the movement of the horse forces them to bump together repeatedly.
Turning back with an angry glare, Annabelle demands distance while Ian coldly retorts that he isn't enjoying the proximity either. Annabelle hurls a bizarre curse at him, wishing that he drops a cookie and gets caught by his secret crush.
She continues her verbal assault, spitefully wishing that he misaligns all the buttons on his shirt during a formal event.
Ian watches her frantic cursing with a subtle, amused smirk, finding her strange behavior more entertaining than annoying.
Ian listens as a woman notes he always wears the same gray training clothes, highlighting his predictable nature. Looking down, Ian hears the woman continue her critique, pointing out his habit of only eating meat.
Ian watches Annabelle closely from behind on the horse, noting how small she seems in the saddle.
A rhythmic clatter-clop sounds as Ian questions Annabelle's sanity for wanting to duel on her birthday.
Ian reacts with sudden alarm as something goes wrong during their ride, his red eyes wide with shock.
Ian catches Annabelle in a flowery frame, while a hand reaches out and someone calls her name urgently.
Their eyes lock in a moment of intense tension, the proximity of their faces causing Ian's pulse to quicken.
Annabelle complains about the heat from the wine as Ian maintains the horse's pace through the bright woods.
A flushed Annabelle admits this was her first ever birthday drink, her expression turning soft and nostalgic.
Ian is visibly stunned, covering his mouth as the weight of her revelation hits him with unexpected force. Reflecting on the sanctity of birthdays, Ian realizes that a duel today would be completely and utterly inappropriate.
Ian suggests postponing their fight, but Annabelle begins to slump forward, her consciousness finally fading away. Annabelle passes out against him, forcing Ian to catch her as her strength fails from the expensive wine.
Ian stares down at his unconscious rival, his red eyes filled with a new, deeply conflicted sense of concern.
Annabelle remains in a deep sleep, and a glowing sound effect pulses as Ian calls her name softly.
Ian's face reddens as he realizes her unintentional strategy to embarrass him is working far too well. Annabelle is completely unresponsive in her wine-induced slumber, leaving Ian to manage the awkward situation alone.
Ian looks down at the sleeping girl with a bewildered, "Huh?" unsure of how to handle her collapse.
The dark-haired Leslie watches from the manor, questioning why Ian decided to bring a guest home so late. Annabelle snores peacefully in a separate panel, while Ian stands by his horse, looking weary and deeply troubled.
Standing before the grand manor, Ian explains the situation to Leslie as Annabelle hangs limp off the horse.
Leslie scolds her son, insisting that taking a drunken girl to his family home was a terrible idea.
A confused Ian is surrounded by question marks as an unseen voice offers him some unexpected, sarcastic praise. Leslie sighs deeply, worrying that Annabelle will only have frozen meat to eat if she goes home now.
Shifting her mood with a bright smile, Leslie decides to personally take Annabelle in for the night.
Ian bursts into the room, demanding to know what his mother is thinking with this sudden, overwhelming hospitality.
Ian stops short with a surprised, his expression softening as he gazes toward the sleeping girl.
A hand turns a golden knob with a soft click, entering the quiet, elegantly furnished guest bedchamber. Tucked into a massive, ornate bed, the sleeping Annabelle is watched over by a conflicted, staring Ian. Annabelle lies in the grand bed, clutching her sword tightly, even as a maid stands by the bedside. Surrounded by blue flowers, a peaceful Annabelle continues her deep sleep, refusing to let go of her weapon.
Leslie gazes down at Annabelle with pity,
noting how thin and fragile the young girl has become lately. Leslie reflects sadly on how Annabelle's difficult life has left her unable to even sleep without a sword.
Narrative panels contrast the noble Ian with the common Annabelle, emphasizing the vast social chasm between them.
A gentle hand strokes the girl's purple hair, providing a motherly warmth that Annabelle has never known.
Flashback panels reveal the shadows of Annabelle's neglectful parents, the Marquis and Caitlin, looming over her.
Sitting by the bed, Leslie is overcome with regret for the years she ignored the girl's obvious suffering. Bright morning sunlight and flowers fill the room as Annabelle finally begins to stir from her long slumber. Annabelle wakes with a start, blinking in confusion at the unfamiliar, luxurious ceiling above her guest bed. She sits upright with a frantic jumps up, her mind racing as she questions her surroundings and location. Panic fills Annabelle as she tries to recall the events of the previous night with the blonde knight.
A comical chibi illustrates her fear of having fallen off the horse and died during her drunken stupor.
Annabelle screams in absolute terror, mourning the idea of dying so pathetically after fighting so hard to survive. Leslie enters the room with a bright, welcoming smile, greeting the startled Annabelle as she finally wakes up.
Panic sets in as Annabelle asks what happened, while Leslie kindly checks if she feels any discomfort.
Leslie cheerfully reveals that Annabelle fell asleep at the Duke's house, causing the girl to freeze in shock. Feeling like a complete mess, a chibi Annabelle hides her face in embarrassment before the refined Duchess. Annabelle offers a humble, stuttering apology and prepares to leave immediately to escape her mounting embarrassment. Leslie offers a knowing, motherly smile, gently suggesting that Annabelle must be suffering from a terrible hangover. Annabelle stares back with a confused yes, the very concept of a hangover seeming entirely alien to her.
A yellow bowl of steaming, spicy tomato stew sits invitingly on a white plate, glowing under soft, warm lights.
The purple-haired girl gazes at the soup with wide, shimmering eyes, comforted by the promise of something warm to eat. Leslie enthusiastically suggests a hot, hearty meal while Annabelle praises her companion's intelligence and thoughtfulness during their cozy detox brunch. With a bright, motherly smile, Leslie invites Annabelle to enjoy the healthy detox meal together in the elegant dining room. Annabelle bursts into a joyful, light-hearted laugh, her eyes squeezed shut as the tension of the morning finally melts away. The girl clutches the warm bowl tightly with both hands, treasuring the simple, nourishing comfort of the spicy broth.
Seated in the elegant dining room, Annabelle delights in the spicy tomato stew, while Leslie chuckles at her guests' enthusiasm. Leslie pauses her meal to ask what they should eat next, leaving a surprised Annabelle to blink in confusion.
Annabelle hesitates over the sudden question as Leslie encourages her to choose their next course based purely on her instincts.
Illustrated as cute chibis, Leslie explains that spicy food is best followed by sweets, and Annabelle eagerly agrees with her. In another comical panel, Leslie suggests they each finish an entire cake, prompting a startled but playful response from Annabelle.
Completely satisfied, the purple-haired girl leans back with a happy sigh, declaring that the delicious meal was a grand success.
Annabelle offers her sincere thanks to Leslie, who casually sips her tea while preparing for their next mysterious outing. With a knowing wink and a raised finger, Leslie playfully announces that she has another special destination planned for them.
Annabelle asks where they are heading as Leslie mentions another member of the Rainfield family who specializes in swordsmanship.
Turning back with a cheerful grin, Leslie confirms their departure, while Annabelle watches her with a look of stunned disbelief. Surrounded by tiny pig illustrations, a nervous thought bubble reveals Annabelle's desperate wish to just return home instead. A grand green carriage pulled by two horses arrives at a cobblestone plaza as the driver formally announces their arrival. Leslie steps out in a magnificent red gown, while a formal attendant assists Annabelle out of the luxurious carriage.
Annabelle stares in wonder at the ornate, flower-adorned boutique, questioning her surroundings in the bright, beautiful morning sunlight. A close-up captures a feminine foot in a stylish black and white ruffled heel stepping firmly onto the smooth pavement.
An elegant woman with dark purple hair and green eyes stands at the entrance, warmly welcoming Lady Leslie to her establishment.
The sophisticated woman turns her attention to Annabelle, offering a bright and welcoming smile to the young, purple-haired knight.
Standing before several garment sketches, the purple-haired designer suggests they begin working on a specific dress design immediately.
With the grace of a butterfly, the designer masterfully uses a knife to slice through fabric in a stunning display.
Fabric swirls around Annabelle's waist as the designer works with rhythmic precision, leaving the young knight shocked by the display.
Annabelle gazes in awe at the designer's profile, comparing the elegant movement of the fabric to a delicate flying butterfly.
The designer explains her comfort with using a knife as a tool, while Annabelle marvels at her incredible, unconventional technique.
Touching a sample of pink fabric to Annabelle's chest, the designer notes how well the color complements her hair.
Annabelle admits that while her family shares this hair color, she feels no closeness to the Marquis Abeda's household.
Resting in a plush chair, Annabelle reflects sadly that a kinder environment might have let her learn swordsmanship as a hobby.
The designer presents more fabric options, explaining that many colors suit someone with Annabelle's distinctive and light purple hair.
Drawing a pink sash across her hand, the designer promises to craft casual clothes that Annabelle can wear right away.
Annabelle stutters a humble thank you while Leslie expresses her pure joy at finally replacing the girl's old training clothes. A brilliant, shimmering light fills the room, signaling that the mysterious and expertly crafted garment is finally finished.
Annabelle is revealed in a stunning, lace-trimmed pink dress, her face reflecting a mix of shock and quiet inner admiration.
Leslie is visibly awestruck, her hands raised and her mouth agape as she takes in Annabelle's incredible feminine transformation. Leslie enthusiastically praises Annabelle's beauty, while the blushing girl bashfully questions if she really looks that good in pink. Leslie smiles warmly while gently stroking Annabelle's hair, offering the beautiful new dress to her as a personal gift.
The designer explains that she couldn't stand seeing the old training outfit and wanted to create this sample specifically for her.
Leslie and the designer discuss shipping more clothes to the Duke's manor, much to Annabelle's utter surprise and mounting confusion.
In a chibi scene, Leslie happily invites Annabelle back after her visit to Ian, while Annabelle privately decides not to return. Leslie reaches out to take Annabelle's hand, suggesting a dinner outing that results in a startled shout from the knight.
Annabelle freezes in alarm, her expression turning frantic as she begins to recall a critical and dangerous piece of information. A malicious smirk appears on the brother's face as he details his violent plot to cripple Ian the next evening.
Horror washes over Annabelle as she remembers her brother's scheme, her face paling at the gravity of the looming threat.
Holding a request paper with her name, Annabelle panics about the dangerous item and her own forgotten involvement in the plot. The girl stares off with an intense, fearful expression, dreading the moment her malicious request ends up in Ian's hands. Trembling with visible distress, the purple-haired girl clutches her throat as the weight of her past choices begins to crush her. Leslie excitedly pulls Annabelle along for dinner while the girl realizes she must urgently retrieve her dangerous request first. A grand green carriage rolls through the countryside as a conversation about Leslie begins to unfold. Inside the carriage, Annabelle asks where Ian's room is, and Leslie reveals it is directly above her guest chamber.
Annabelle quickly invents a lie about watching the windows from the training grounds to build her fighting spirit.
Leslie offers a knowing smile, reminiscing about how she used to gaze at the Duke's manor when she was younger.
Leslie reflects on the unpredictability of life, while Annabelle privately compares the sentiment to her own strange journey. Annabelle asks if Leslie once competed for the top spot in swordsmanship against the former Duke, Wade Ross. Leslie laughs, admitting she was always stuck in second place, much like Annabelle's own rivalry with Ian. A rhythmic clatter sounds as the carriage wheels turn,
while Leslie confesses how much she secretly hated the competitive Brayden.
Leslie explains that as a commoner, she desperately wanted a title before recounting events from when she was 21.
Annabelle listens with rapt attention as Leslie somberly reveals that year marked her final swordsmanship competition.
Flashback panels depict Leslie's father starting a drunken brawl at a bar, leading to a sudden, violent struggle. The memory continues with Leslie's father stumbling against a wooden railing as the chaos of the night intensifies.
A sickening thud echoes as Leslie and her father tumble through a window, falling toward the hard ground below.
Despite surviving the fall, Leslie reveals her permanent leg injury, explaining she was never able to wield a sword again.
Annabelle is visibly moved, her heart breaking for the talented woman whose bright future was cut short by tragedy.
Leslie explains that her injury forced her to withdraw from the final competition, ending her dreams of victory. A formal portrait shows Brayden, his golden hair framing a face shadowed by his intense and prideful nature.
Leslie explains that Brayden was very upset and refused to accept her withdrawal, while Annabelle listens with quiet curiosity.
As the carriage reaches the manor, Leslie playfully promises to tell the story of the Duke's confession another time. The green carriage arrives at the entrance of the Wade Ross Duke's manor with a loud metallic screech.
Leslie steps out gracefully, inviting Annabelle to head straight for the dining room for their scheduled meal together.
Annabelle stands in her pink dress, looking off toward the manor with a solemn and deeply focused expression.
The young knight stares up at the grand architecture, her mind racing with the urgent mission she must complete.
Inside, a somber Ian sits alone, reading a book while a plate of cookies remains untouched on the table.
Ian mumbles to himself about Annabelle not coming, his expression turning sour with disappointment as he stares at the page.
Ian vigorously shakes his head, desperately trying to force the distracting thoughts of Annabelle out of his mind. His concentration breaks as a cookie suddenly slips from his hand, tumbling toward the floor with a quick motion. Ian's reflexes take over as he reaches out and catches the falling treat just inches from the ground. Relieved he didn't drop it, Ian imagines Annabelle mockingly scolding him for nearly being caught by the girl he likes. Ian freezes with a look of pure shock as he realizes how deeply Annabelle's imaginary voice has affected him. The golden-haired knight clutches his head in frustration, finding his constant preoccupation with the girl to be absolutely ridiculous. Ian sighs heavily, lamenting how a supposedly trivial curse has left him so worried and mentally exhausted. He admits to himself with a look of exhaustion that he has been thinking about Annabelle all day long. A sudden shout of his name startles Ian, making him turn around with a look of wide-eyed surprise.
Annabelle stands in the doorway, her face flushed and her eyes filled with an intense, frantic energy.
Annabelle points a finger at Ian, her voice trembling as she confronts him in his private study. Rushing forward, Annabelle grabs Ian by the shoulders and asks in a panic if he is really okay. A close-up captures Annabelle's shimmering blue eyes as she searches Ian's face for any signs of the looming danger. Ian gazes back at her in silence, stunned by her sudden appearance and the desperate concern in her eyes. Horror washes over Annabelle as she gasps, her hand flying to her mouth as she sees something terrible. In a comical chibi scene, Annabelle screams in terror after noticing that Ian is suffering from a sudden nosebleed. Information panels explain that this black magic requires blood from a person of the opposite sex who hates the target. Annabelle recalls the past where she happily provided her blood to her brother, never realizing the harm it would cause. The dark magic was cast upon a bookmark ordered in her name, hidden within the very book Ian is reading. A terrifying illustration reveals the ultimate price of the curse, a slow, agonizing descent into total blindness. Annabelle's face pales as she realizes the physical symptoms of the curse are already beginning to take hold of Ian. Gulping nervously, Annabelle searches the book Ian is holding and realizes the dangerous bookmark has already been removed. Thinking frantically, Annabelle decides she must get Ian out of the room immediately before he notices the blood. Illustrated as a chibi, Annabelle urgently suggests that Ian should go wash up and clean the blood from his face.
Ian wipes his nose with a handkerchief, staring back at Annabelle with an intense, suspicious, and unwavering gaze.
Ian suspects Annabelle of casting a spell, while the purple-haired girl reacts with frantic, blushing denial.
In a chibi scene, Annabelle orders the nose-bleeding Ian to the bathroom while dismissing his suspicions as nonsense.
Ian narrows his eyes suspiciously, unconvinced by Annabelle's excuses as he watches her through the mirror's reflection. Ian turns away, convinced she wouldn't worry out of concern, while Annabelle watches him from the background. Standing face to face, Ian demands to know the real reason for Annabelle's sudden and dressed-up visit to his room. Ian asks if she cast a bewitching spell on him, prompting Annabelle to retort that she'd have better things to do.
Crossing his arms, Ian questions why Annabelle rushed to his room in such a hurry wearing her new pink dress.
A close-up shows Annabelle sweating nervously as she realizes she needs a better lie to avoid further suspicion. To prove her malice, Annabelle performs a high kick toward Ian, shouting that she only came to bother him.
Annabelle offers a determined and slightly manic smile as she prepares to continue her staged rivalry with the knight.
A dull thud echoes as Annabelle delivers a swift kick that Ian blocks with his arm, shocking the girl. Annabelle is completely stunned, her face paling as she realizes Ian didn't dodge the attack like he usually would. Ian scolds her for kicking while wearing a skirt, while Annabelle panics because he failed to avoid her blow. Grabbing Ian's arm in a panic, Annabelle shouts his name and asks in horror if he has lost his sight. Information panels detail the symptoms of black magic, confirming that Ian's nosebleed and red eyes signal the curse's activation.
Annabelle desperately tries to inspect Ian's eyes while he struggles and tells her to get away from him.
A close-up of their feet shows them scuffling as Ian complains about her closeness, while Annabelle remains stubbornly focused.
The two stumble together in a blurred display of motion as Annabelle continues her frantic attempt to help the knight.
A close-up captures the two in a moment of intense proximity, their faces inches apart amidst a floral backdrop. Annabelle freezes in shock, her eyes wide as the weight of their physical closeness finally sinks in.
Finding herself on top of Ian, Annabelle realizes her mistake and begins to pull away in a flustered panic. Ian blushes deeply as he trembles beneath her, complaining that she is the reason he has collapsed.
Hovering over the blonde knight, Annabelle notices his bloodshot eyes and dreads that the black magic is truly active. Gripping Ian's wrists, Annabelle vows that she won't accept a bad ending, her expression one of fierce determination.
Lying dazed on the ground, Ian wonders why this is happening while looking up at the determined girl.
Flashback panels show Ian as the prestigious Ross heir, surrounded by women he ignores in favor of training.
Ian walks away from his training, his back turned to the world as he focuses solely on his swordsmanship. The narrative continues, explaining that Ian has never had interest in anything besides the path of the sword. Trembling on the floor, Ian realizes he cannot bring himself to push Annabelle away despite their awkward position. Blushing and frustrated, Ian shouts that Annabelle is the very first woman to ever treat him this way. Annabelle looks down at him with a confused and curious expression, baffled by his sudden and intense emotional outburst. A wide scene shows Annabelle straddling Ian on the bed before she suddenly realizes the scandal of the situation. Annabelle clutches her face, feeling guilty and embarrassed as if she has actually done something inappropriate to him. Annabelle points a finger at the seated Ian, loudly proclaiming that she has zero interest in his body. Ian stares back with a shocked, blushing expression, stunned by Annabelle's blunt and defensive rejection of him. Pointing upward, Annabelle angrily declares that she won't tolerate any insults regarding her intentions toward him. In a comical chibi scene, Annabelle yells at a stunned Ian before privately worrying if she went too far. Thinking about the cursed bookmark, Annabelle spots a stack of books on a side table and narrows her eyes. The scene zooms in on the green book, revealing the small flowered bookmark that holds the dangerous curse. A quick tap sounds as Annabelle's fancy heels step across the rug, moving toward her target on the table.
Annabelle stands before the books, her expression serious as she prepares to retrieve the source of the black magic.
A shimmering effect surrounds the green book as Annabelle confirms that the dangerous bookmark is indeed right there.
As Annabelle reaches for the book, Ian suddenly calls her name, making her freeze in her tracks. Annabelle's hand hesitates just inches from the book, a sudden jerk signaling her fear of being caught. Turning back with a nervous start, Annabelle stutters in surprise as Ian catches her in the middle of her mission. Ian gazes at her with a somber and serious expression, asking if his body is really not good enough.
Annabelle is completely dumbfounded by his question, her face reflecting her total confusion and shock.
A close-up highlights Ian's melancholic profile as he continues to stare off with an unexpectedly vulnerable look. Ian watches as Annabelle finally grabs the book, questioning why she has become so serious all of a sudden. Holding the book to her chest, Annabelle gives a bright, forced smile and insists that everything is perfectly fine.
Annabelle asks to borrow the green book, leaving Ian sitting on the floor with a confused and stunned expression.
Smiling brightly, the purple-haired girl claims she has been wanting to read the book for a long time.
The book's cover is revealed to be an illustrated guide titled Understanding Muscles, Male Edition, featuring a muscular figure.
Opening the book, Annabelle screams in utter shock and embarrassment at the suggestive contents the noble heir was reading. Ian calls out her name, causing a flustered Annabelle to look away with a deep, guilty blush on her face. With an intense and glowing gaze, Ian demands to know if she finds him inferior to the book's illustration. A fiery aura surrounds the blonde knight as Annabelle stands frozen, completely intimidated by his sudden surge of passion. Attempting to remain casual, Annabelle retorts that the muscles in the illustration are much larger than Ian's own.
Ian is visibly offended and sweats nervously, his pride clearly wounded by her blunt and unfavorable physical comparison.
Annabelle begins to walk away, dismissively waving him off and claiming the book's illustrations are likely exaggerated anyway. A massive, explosive crash suddenly rocks the room as the green book bursts into pieces and smoke.
Ian instantly leaps to his feet, shouting Annabelle's name in a panic as he tries to reach her.
A sharp ouch escapes Annabelle as she collapses to the floor, clutching her foot while the bookmark lies nearby.
Ian rushes toward the purple-haired girl with a look of frantic concern, desperately asking if she is all right.
Placing a steadying hand on her shoulder, Ian looks down at Annabelle and asks what on earth is happening. Annabelle snaps at him, shouting that her only problem is the misfortune of being tangled up with him. She climbs onto the balcony railing, declaring she must leave before her bad luck worsens by staying near him. Pointing a finger, Annabelle shouts a comical curse, hoping Ian wakes up with a giant pimple the next morning. As she jumps from the balcony, she yells that the imaginary pimple should swell and last for 2 weeks. Annabelle lands in the garden with a quick talk sound, thinking that her rude act is necessary to avoid suspicion. Leaning over the balcony, Ian shouts Annabelle Nadit's full name in a state of sheer frustration and bewilderment. Annabelle runs away into the night, waving her hand and telling the blonde knight not to follow her. She yells back one last order for him to investigate the suspicious muscle book and feel an itch. Ian stands alone at the railing, gazing into the distance with a somber, silent, and deeply reflective expression. From the balcony, Ian watches Annabelle skip away, her mocking song about his inability to find anything drifting back. The scene shifts to a smoky gambling den where players shout in frustration over their mounting card game losses.
Annabelle enters the room, opening the door and accusing the brown-haired man of turning the house into a den of gambling.
The brown-haired man looks up from his cards in shock, surprised by the purple-haired girl's sudden and forceful entrance. A hand swiftly deals a card onto the table with a sharp sound, adding to the tension of the game. Leaning over the table, the man sighs heavily, and laments that the high-stakes game is slowly killing him.
The brown-haired man despairs over his losses until Annabelle commands him to follow her for a new plan.
Meeting in private, the man questions Annabelle's choice of a pink dress, finding her current outfit quite strange. A close-up of the dress highlights the man's dismissive comment that the fabric looks like very cheap material.
Annabelle's face turns pale with rage as she warns him never to insult the clothes Leslie gave her again.
The man asks if she checked the items, while Annabelle questions what he means by such a vague term. Annabelle smirks with satisfaction, confirming that her plan worked and the target items exploded just as intended. Recalling the incident, Annabelle shows how she retrieved the cursed flower bookmark after the book burst into pieces. The brown-haired man claps his hands with joy, praising Annabelle for successfully completing the dangerous mission. A close-up captures Annabelle's dark, conspiratorial smile as she prepares for the next phase of her master plan.
Surrounded by a floral frame, Annabelle confidently asks the man if he is willing to bet on her victory.
Narrative panels explain that other than Ian, there is no one who can match Annabelle's skill in swordsmanship.
Annabelle laughs while explaining that her winning odds are currently low because everyone expects Ian to win.
The man is struck with greed, imagining a rain of gold coins as he realizes he could become a millionaire. Annabelle declares that after she wins the swordsmanship competition, all the resulting property and wealth will be hers.
She reflects on her hard work taking care of someone, a thought that seems to bother her deeply.
With a radiant and generous smile, Annabelle tells the man he can take all the money won from betting. The man realizes she has already calculated the massive 35-to-1 odds and agrees it is a brilliant idea.
Annabelle laughs at the prospect of him becoming rich, while the man begins to recall a past conversation.
The brown-haired man reminds her of her previous mention of a legendary swordsman who had lost their sight.
Annabelle gestures dismissively with a confident smile, asking if he truly believes she would lose to a blind Ian.
Riyadh questions if Annabelle is truly serious about targeting the blonde knight as part of their newest scheme.
Annabelle decides to proceed with the backup plan, determined to use a secret weapon to ensure her success.
The brown-haired man is visibly startled, questioning exactly which secret item the purple-haired girl is referring to. Annabelle explains that she intends to use the special medicine they had previously prepared as a contingency. A shimmering, clear liquid pours steadily from a glass vial, representing the final stage of their complex plan. Riyadh cheers with newfound confidence, certain that this secret medicine will make victory an absolute certainty for them. The scene shifts to Annabelle's quiet bedroom, where she is seen collapsing onto her bed in exhaustion. Annabelle scratches her head in frustration, lamenting that her life is troubled by a man she considers a parasite. She imagines the upcoming competition, plotting to forfeit and cause the man she despises to go completely bankrupt. A fiery chibi Annabelle vows to make him suffer, imagining him reduced to wearing rags and eating scraps. In the Wydros estate, the woman in the purple dress reacts with total shock to the news of the explosion.
She questions why Annabelle would risk herself to take the hit and then leave without saying a word.
Ian looks away with a guilty and contemplative expression, quietly confirming the details of the incident to his mother.
A blonde noble enters the room, his somber voice repeating Annabelle's name as he joins the tense conversation.
Duke Braden Wydros is introduced, questioning if they are discussing the very lady who saved Ian's life.
The Duke notes that Ian's mother believes Annabelle's actions were heroic, despite Ian's own doubts about the situation.
The dark-haired woman lists Annabelle's deeds, reminding Ian that she faced poison, terror, and an explosion for him. Braden asks what else could define saving someone, while Ian insists that the events were merely a coincidence. The woman crosses her arms, retorting that even if it was a coincidence, it makes her even more thankful. The Duke touches his chin thoughtfully, wondering who could possibly be trying to harm his son so persistently. A look of realization crosses the woman's face as she begins to consider a new and troubling possibility.
She suggests the attacks might be a political warning triggered by Ian's ongoing friendship with the silver-haired prince.
The Duke places a steadying hand on her shoulder, noting that the recent royal family movements are indeed unusual.
He mentions a persistent rumor circulating in social circles that Prince Robert and Annabelle have been dining alone.
A vision of a jeweled crown and crossed swords appears, highlighting the dangerous rumors of a throne usurpation.
Brayden worries that a loner like Annabelle swearing loyalty to the prince is a sign Ian must be careful. Ian stands in stunned silence, his mind racing as he processes the idea of Annabelle swearing loyalty to another. He recalls the image of clinking wine glasses, wondering if that was the true nature of her recent actions. A silhouette of the pair dining together haunts Ian, making him question everything he thought he knew about her. Ian's face turns pale with shock as he imagines Annabelle and the silver-haired prince as a married couple. The blonde knight is horrified by the sudden thought that Annabelle might have actually fallen for Prince Robert. He desperately tries to dismiss the idea, finding the prospect of such a romance to be utterly impossible. Ian's mother panics as she notices her son's sudden nosebleed, frantically asking if he is actually injured. A close-up reveals the Duke's striking heterochromia as he recognizes his own youthful, love-struck expression in his son. Brayden smiles knowingly, realizing Ian has the same look he once had when he first fell for Leslie. While his wife tends to Ian, the Duke worries that his son's political marriage might lead to no descendants. Surrounded by a burning aura of determination, Brayden vows to make Annabelle his future daughter-in-law at any cost. Riyadh runs through the dark streets with a joyous skip, humming a tune as he heads toward his destination. Draped in a dark cloak, Annabelle looks back over her shoulder with a serious and focused expression. The scene shifts to a rowdy gambling tavern filled with patrons drinking and placing bets on the upcoming tournament. Riyadh grins widely from beneath his hood, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of excitement and devious intent. He slams a heavy sack of money onto the counter, loudly betting everything he has on Annabelle Nadit. His friends try to stop him, reminding him that he should be loyal to his own brother, Ian.
A poster shows the lopsided odds for the tournament, with Ian at 1.0003 and Annabelle at a massive 35.94.
Riyadh dismisses his friends' warnings with a smirk, telling them not to come begging for drinks once he's rich.
One friend mocks Riyadh, assuming the bag only contains 10 gold pieces despite his confident and tough attitude.
The bag spills open to reveal a glittering hoard of jewels and gold, leaving the onlookers in absolute disbelief.
Riyadh adds a document to the pile, which his friend identifies with a scream of shock as a house deed.
His friends ask if he has lost his mind for betting his entire fortune, but Riyadh tells them to shut up. Riyadh shouts a final declaration of victory for Annabelle as the purple-haired girl watches him from the shadows. Annabelle glances back nervously from under her hood, stunned by a certain man's sheer determination. Seated alone in the tavern, she wonders if this turn of events might actually benefit her. A shocking betting board for the next emperor reveals Prince Robert has astronomical 13-to-1 odds. Staring in disbelief, Annabelle is rattled to find people are gambling on the future of the throne. The prospect of a 13 times return on Prince Robert's victory leaves her heart racing with greed. Annabelle rushes into the establishment, apologizing to Oscar as she prepares to place an impulsive bet. Shimmering with joy, she bets her Rainfield Restaurant VIP ticket on Robert becoming the next emperor.
The clerk warns of a 20% fee and a 1-month cancellation window, leaving Annabelle momentarily surprised.
While she stands at the counter, a brown-haired man nearby listens with a subtle, knowing smirk.
Annabelle laughs, confident the wager won't be canceled since she believes the prince's greed is absolute.
Her laughter dies in her throat as she suddenly senses a familiar presence standing right behind her. Smiling brightly amidst a floral background, Prince Robert asks if she finds the betting situation impressive. Startled, the purple-haired girl turns to find the silver-haired prince has been watching her entire transaction. Outside by the fountain, Robert questions her choice to bet a precious restaurant voucher on him. As she tries to leave, Robert grabs her arm and urgently asks her to stay a moment. The prince smiles warmly, expressing gratitude for her support and offering to repay her in some way. Annabelle demands that if he is going to give her a reward,
It better be something big.
Robert repeats her request with a blush, appearing slightly flustered and confused by her blunt demand. Surrounded by flowers, Robert extends an invitation for her to be his partner for an upcoming opera.
Annabelle covers her mouth in total shock, unable to believe the incredible value of the offer. She envisions the prestigious opera Don't Go Crazy, realizing the ticket is an extremely rare invitation.
The scene reveals the high society stage where her and Riyadh's final master scheme will eventually unfold.
Robert beams as Annabelle celebrates, knowing she no longer has to sneak into the event. He admits his surprise at her joy, while she laughs about finally getting to see the show.
In a cute chibi moment, Annabelle cheekily asks for a gold coin too, which Robert playfully refuses. The scene shifts to the Waitrose estate, where Ian sits on his bed in the dead of night.
Looking somber and restless, the blonde knight sighs that he is completely unable to fall asleep.
Ian closes his eyes, trying to clear his mind, but troubling memories continue to haunt him.
He vividly recalls Annabelle's harsh insults and her strange behavior, which only fuels his growing frustration.
Suddenly bolting upright in bed, Ian is struck by a wave of intense panic and lingering confusion.
He wonders why his heart is pounding so frantically just from the memory of holding her hand.
Frantic to escape his thoughts, Ian grabs his sword and marches out to the training grounds. Birds chirp peacefully over the grand training ground as a new day dawns at the Waitrose estate. Summoned to the palace, Annabelle sits patiently while a servant carefully tends to her injured foot. She apologizes to Leslie for her abrupt departure, but the noblewoman looks surprised by her modesty. Leslie expresses deep regret for letting her leave, noting Annabelle took the injury intended for Ian. When asked about her foot, Annabelle admits it is swollen, but insists she is perfectly fine. A warm and gentle smile spreads across Leslie's face, visibly relieved by the girl's reassuring words. Despite the relief, a lingering shadow of worry crosses Leslie's expression as she watches the girl.
Annabelle's face hardens into a serious expression as she questions the true identity of the exploding book.
A sharp close-up captures her intense focus as she ponders the dangerous mysteries surrounding her latest mission.
Leslie dismisses Annabelle's breakfast of rotten meat, insisting that a proper meal is absolutely necessary.
Framed by vibrant roses, Leslie affectionately cups Annabelle's face and invites her to dine together. Overwhelmed by the noblewoman's kindness, Annabelle looks down and offers a quiet, sincere thanks. An illustrated menu transition appears, signaling the start of a lavish meal shared between the pair.
A decadent dessert cart arrives, and Leslie excitedly suggests they begin a second round of eating.
Laughing with joy, Leslie gestures for Annabelle to sit and enjoy the many sweets provided.
Annabelle thanks her for the hospitality, while Leslie beams, happy that her guest enjoyed the food.
Annabelle stands in quiet contemplation, reflecting on a swordsman's duty when they leave their weapon behind. Leslie smiles knowingly, suggesting that instead of a sword, Annabelle has actually captured something far more significant.
Leslie flashes a cheerful finger heart, enjoying a pleasant afternoon tea with the purple-haired girl.
A maid arrives with Annabelle's training gear and sword, interrupting their peaceful meal.
Annabelle gathers her things to leave, but the dark-haired noblewoman suddenly calls out to her. Leslie presents a plate of gourmet chocolates, offering them to Annabelle as a sweet palate cleanser. In a charmingly small scene, Annabelle finds herself completely powerless against the allure of the delicious treats. A sharp knock interrupts the room as Annabelle happily indulges in one of the chocolate truffles. Leslie springs up with delight, announcing that the highly anticipated dress has finally been delivered. Annabelle finishes her chocolate, secretly hoping she can sneak away while the noblewoman is occupied. Leslie is bewildered when the purple-haired girl tries to depart before even seeing the new arrival. The noblewoman insists that Annabelle must stay and try on the clothes that were specifically ordered. Leslie sips her tea contentedly while Annabelle prepares to unveil her new high society look.
Annabelle emerges from the changing area, looking absolutely radiant in a light blue floral patterned gown.
Leslie is overwhelmed by how perfectly the elegant dress complements the young girl's features. Lady Marilyn joins the conversation, commenting that the new clothes have truly found their perfect owner. Annabelle addresses Leslie and Marilyn, nervously asking if they would be willing to help her with something.
Both noblewomen lean in with interest, encouraging Annabelle to share whatever is on her mind.
Annabelle explains that she has received a rare invitation to attend an upcoming opera performance.
Leslie asks who invited her, and the girl's answer reveals it was the silver-haired Prince Robert.
The two noblewomen shout in absolute shock, unable to believe the girl is dating the prince. They immediately declare the situation a high-stakes emergency, rushing to find the perfect jewelry to match. A montage shows Annabelle trying on a series of increasingly lavish gowns for the grand event. Exhausted, Annabelle admits that intensive fashion sessions are far more draining than a day of swordsmanship. Marilyn asks if the girl is actually close with Prince Robert, noting the significance of the invitation.
Annabelle downplays the encounter as a simple meeting, while Marilyn warns her of how others perceive it.
Leslie remains silent, her expression shifting as she carefully considers the political weight of the prince's actions. Duke Braden is staggered to learn that Annabelle will be attending the opera as the prince's partner. He urgently tells Leslie to keep this development a secret from their son, Ian, for now. The Duke suggests that seeing the pair together might finally force Ian to acknowledge his own feelings. Leslie smirks with devious intent, fully on board with the plan to manipulate her son's budding romance. The scene shifts to the day of the opera, where Prince Robert waits outside the Grand Theater. Robert greets Annabelle warmly as she arrives, his eyes filled with genuine admiration for her transformation. The silver-haired prince is momentarily speechless, completely captivated by the purple-haired girl's stunning beauty. Annabelle makes her grand debut in a magnificent midnight blue gown adorned with glowing rose details.
She dismisses the idea that Ian would feel jealous, firmly believing that he actually hates her.
Robert and Annabelle share a light-hearted laugh, enjoying the rare moment of peace before entering. The prince playfully asks for a blessing from her as a token of appreciation for the evening. Annabelle recalls Leslie's mention of the fruit punch, her mind drifting toward the post-performance snacks. She blesses the prince by wishing for seedless watermelon in his drink, which he finds hilarious. Robert graciously escorts Annabelle into the theater, carefully leading her to their designated high society seats. They share a toast during the event, with Robert comparing the wine to a famous restaurant's vintage. The prince watches her with an intense, lingering gaze as she finishes her drink in the dim light. Robert reassures her about the safety of the refreshments, explaining the strict tasting protocols in place. Annabelle's focus hardens as she thinks about a specific potion that has no effect on commoners. A diagram illustrates how the dangerous liquid can permanently cripple anyone who wields powerful sword energy. Realization strikes her like a bolt of lightning, and she vows to make Ian take the antidote. Robert pulls her back to reality by asking if she had looked up the opera's tragic plot. A vision of the stage shows a couple caught in a story of madness and extreme emotional anguish. The prince explains the bizarre details of the character's descent into insanity, leaving Annabelle completely baffled. Annabelle is horrified by the twisted narrative, wondering if such crazy people actually exist in real life. Surrounding nobles whisper and gossip, shocked to see the prince bringing a mysterious woman to an official event. Gossiping nobles identified the purple-haired girl as the illegitimate child of the Marquis of Avides, noting her unexpected beauty. Seated at a lavish table, Prince Robert and Annabelle enjoy red wine while the high society crowd continues to whisper. With a charming smile, the silver-haired prince encourages her to sample the vintage, promising that the wine is excellent. Annabelle politely declines, explaining that she must drink sparingly because her alcohol tolerance is lower than she previously assumed. Robert is surprised to learn this is her first drink, while she admits she never had the opportunity before. The prince finds her lack of experience strangely honorable, leaving the purple-haired girl completely baffled by his unusual perspective. Robert gazes at her warmly, noting the significance of being the one to share her very first glass of wine.
In a playful moment, Annabelle laughs at the prince's romanticized view, doubting that her low tolerance is actually an honor.
A crisp clink sounds as they raise their glasses in a friendly toast, marking the start of the evening's festivities.
Ian suddenly appears, staring at the pair with a look of pure shock as the sound of the toast rings out. Duke Braden chides his son for standing in the way, nudging the frozen blonde knight to move along.
Sipping her wine, Annabelle notices the arrival of the Wydros men and prepares herself for the inevitable interaction.
Ian's face darkens with a brooding intensity, his internal frustration mounting as he stares at the girl and the prince. Duke Braden offers a formal greeting to Prince Robert, maintaining high society etiquette despite his son's obvious agitation.
Robert stands to welcome the Duke and Ian, expressing his pleasure at seeing the father and son attending together. The silver-haired prince officially introduces Annabelle as his partner for the evening, surrounded by an aura of blooming blue flowers.
Braden clenches his fist with a secret smirk, clearly satisfied that the plan to provoke his son is working perfectly.
Annabelle greets the Duke respectfully, noting that while she has heard much of him, they are finally meeting in person.
Ian offers a cold, brief greeting, while Annabelle wonders if he truly despises her that much based on his expression.
Braden wishes the couple a pleasant time, and Robert cordially returns the sentiment before they part ways.
The groups settle into their respective balcony seats as a cold wind seems to blow through the tense atmosphere. Ian quickly snatches a drink from a passing servant's tray, his movements sharp and filled with lingering irritation. As Ian aggressively gulps down his drink, Annabelle watches with a judging side-eye, annoyed by his persistent bad mood.
Robert leans in to ask Ian for his opinion on Annabelle's appearance, pointedly noting how pretty she looks tonight.
Ian scoffs and looks away, claiming he doesn't know, which prompts a frustrated reaction from his disappointed father.
Robert reassures Annabelle, telling her not to mind the knight's aloof behavior, unaware that she is secretly fuming. Forcing a polite smile, the girl claims to be only slightly upset, while internally plotting a petty revenge against Ian.
Annabelle envisions gifting Ian shattered cookies or messy melted chocolates just to see the annoyed look on his face.
Driven by restlessness, Ian drinks his father's wine in one go, leaving Duke Braden staring in open-mouthed disbelief.
Annabelle watches the blonde knight's reckless drinking with a hardened gaze, mentally encouraging him to just keep going.
Across the theater, 3 purple-haired men from the Avidas family watch the prince and Annabelle from a lower balcony.
Elbin, the second son of the Avides family, bites his thumb nervously while questioning Annabelle's true intentions. Duke Avides adjusts his hair thoughtfully, realizing that the prince must hold the illegitimate girl in very high regard.
The narrative highlights that the prince's public display of affection signals a significant level of protection and political favor.
Elbin expresses concern that the crown prince might be displeased by this public association with an illegitimate daughter. The young man suggests that they should firmly warn Annabelle not to tarnish the prestige of the Avides name. Richard Avides, the eldest son, looks on with a calculating smirk, his monocle glinting with a hidden, devious agenda.
Richard suggests that if they play their cards right, Annabelle could be used as a spy to gather information.
He recalls how she once desperately sought their approval and believes they can manipulate her like a puppet.
Elbin shouts in protest, declaring that he has never viewed her as family and refuses to associate with her.
Ignoring the outburst, the Duke decides that using her is a good idea, much to the younger brother's horror. A sharp tap sounds as the Duke places a hand on Elbin's shoulder, insisting the family's future depends on this.
He orders Elbin to apologize to her after the opera or bribe her with jewelry to win back her loyalty. On stage, the opera singer performs a dramatic aria about a person who has changed for the worse. During the performance, Ian continues drinking while Annabelle yawns, her hand covering her mouth as she loses interest.
Ian sits in silence, clutching his head as he finally admits to himself that he is feeling incredibly frustrated.
A series of sharp taps sounds as Ian marches away, followed by the girl's suspicious gaze watching him leave.
Splash. Ian vigorously washes his face in the restroom,
trying to cool down his frantic thoughts and racing heart.
Water drips from his face as he sighs heavily, staring at his reflection in the mirror with deep exhaustion.
Ian stares intently at his reflection, haunted by confusion over why he is acting so strangely around the girl. Prince Robert and Annabelle are silhouetted as they discuss how Ian's anger stems from seeing them together. Ian stands in the shadows, coldly dismissing the situation as none of his business while his gaze remains fixed. The night progresses as the narrative announces that the full moon has finally risen over the Grand Theater. Annabelle stands on the balcony, elegantly sipping wine while reflecting on the beauty of the moonlit night. A sudden realization strikes the purple-haired girl as she looks down at the ornate jewelry adorning her gown. With a bright and determined smile, Annabelle calls out Ian's name, her eyes shimmering with a secret purpose. A series of sharp taps echo as Annabelle watches Ian walk away, her expression shifting to one of intense focus. Annabelle explains that she must excuse herself to find a restroom after consuming so much wine during the event. She leans in to whisper her departure to Prince Robert, who reacts with a look of mild surprise. Robert warns her that the opera's grand climax is about to begin, and it would be a shame to miss it. Annabelle's expression becomes fierce as she declares that she is also about to reach her own crucial climax. The prince is baffled by her intensity and simply urges her to be quick, which she cheerfully promises to do. Annabelle impulsively snatches the wineglass from Robert's hand, leaving the silver-haired prince completely stunned by her boldness. She laughs off his confusion, jokingly claiming she might get thirsty on the way back from the restroom. Walking through the corridor, the girl prepares to deliver the antidote, plotting to pour it directly into Ian's mouth. Heart racing with a series of quick thumps, Annabelle hurries down the hallway, searching for the blonde knight. Exhausted, she flops down onto the floor in a chibi-style slump, deciding to wait for Ian to appear. While Annabelle waits with the glass, Ian walks alone through the shadows, unaware that he is being watched. Seeing her target at last, Annabelle greets the blonde knight with a radiant and perfectly practiced smile. Ian stops abruptly, staring at the purple-haired girl with wide eyes, completely shocked to find her waiting there. A series of sharp clicks sound as Annabelle approaches him, questioning why he took so long to emerge. Ian's heart thumps loudly as he blushes, deeply moved by the realization that she was waiting specifically for him. A sudden, firm tap sounds as a gloved hand reaches out, marking the beginning of her aggressive intervention. Annabelle suddenly shoves the wineglass toward Ian, urgently commanding the startled knight to drink the liquid immediately. When Ian questions her, she claims the wine tastes awful and insists someone unlucky like him should finish it. Seeing him hesitate, Annabelle mockingly asks if he is actually afraid that the drink she offered is poisoned. To prove her point, the girl takes a small, defiant sip of the wine while maintaining an intense gaze. Wiping her mouth, she insists her tongue is ruined and demands that he take the glass and finish it. Ian reluctantly agrees to her strange demand, his hand reaching out to accept the half-finished wineglass. The blonde knight stands in silence, holding the glass as he stares down at the liquid with deep uncertainty. Annabelle grows frustrated by his hesitation and nearly tells him to forget the whole thing in her annoyance. With a sudden splash, Ian aggressively gulps down the entire glass of wine, catching the girl by surprise. Ian is left stunned by his own impulsive drinking, while Annabelle watches the results of her plan unfold. Red wine stains the knight's pristine uniform as Annabelle smugly asks him how the awful drink finally tasted. She explains that she specially obtained it for him and tells the blonde knight he should be thankful. Ian touches his lip thoughtfully, staring down at his stained shirt as the weight of the moment settles. Relief washes over Annabelle as she reflects on the hardship of finally saving Ian from his potential fate. She offers a gentle, genuine smile, finally feeling a sense of peace after completing her secret mission. Annabelle acknowledges that Ian has had a hard time putting up with her erratic behavior throughout the evening. Turning away with a graceful farewell, she wishes for him to find a wonderful woman and live happily. Ian stares at the mess on his chest, frozen in place as he processes the finality of her words. Her departure is interrupted by Ian's sudden, indignant shout, asking if she truly intends to leave just like that.
Ian marches toward her with heavy footsteps, declaring there is no way she would ever return so quietly.
He calls her name, causing the purple-haired girl to stop and turn back with a look of pure confusion. Leaning in close, the blonde knight demands to know why she isn't swearing at him like she usually does.
Annabelle is completely baffled by his intense reaction, wondering what could possibly be wrong with him all of a sudden.
Frustrated, she shouts a petty insult, promising that he will find something stuck between his teeth later.
Ian is left speechless by the weak job, questioning if that uncharacteristic comment was truly all she had. Annabelle tells him to stop and insists she must leave quickly before she says anything even more foolish.
A sharp tap sounds as Ian suddenly grabs her wrist, his firm grip preventing the girl from walking away.
Ian firmly grips Annabelle's wrist, his expression intense as he stops her from leaving the dimly lit hallway. Challenging her typical defiance, the blonde knight urges the purple-haired girl to continue with her usual aggressive behavior.
Annabelle is left utterly speechless, her eyes wide with shock at Ian's bizarre and completely uncharacteristic request.
Exploding in fury, the girl demands to know what the crazy knight is saying before storming away in disbelief.
A flustered, chibi-style Ian peeks around a corner, shouting in frustration at the girl's perceived idiocy and stubbornness. Ian reflects on his strange interaction, wondering if her insults are actually a hidden way of asking for his companionship. Leslie, a black-haired woman, smiles knowingly while suggesting that acting impulsively might be a quicker way to get results. In a wide hallway shot, Ian continues to spiral into confusion, wondering if she actually wants to be hit. The blonde knight remains deeply disturbed and flustered, his face turning red as he continues to process their chaotic exchange.
Duke Braden suddenly appears, catching the two off guard and questioning what they are doing alone in the corridor. The Duke notes their rivalry and suggests that while fighting is expected, they should maintain decorum within the theater.
Annabelle offers a polite curtsy to Lord Braden, apologetically promising that she did not mean to cause any concern.
She gracefully takes her leave, pledging to be more careful, while Ian stands behind her looking completely baffled by the shift. A flashback highlights the contrast between the Duke's wife, Leslie, and the reckless, headstrong nature of the children involved.
Duke Braden's face is shown in a close-up as the narrative questions the accuracy of labeling her a reckless child. Annabelle walks through the hallway, internally resolving to stop clinging to the past and move forward with her life.
The Duke laughs heartily, recalling how Leslie still reacts with annoyance whenever she sees him after all these years.
Prince Robert finally arrives on the scene, his silver hair catching the light as he approaches the gathered group. The prince notes the awkward tension between the flustered knight and the grumpy girl, sensing that something dramatic just happened. Robert's gaze drops to the large red wine stain on Ian's chest, his eyes widening in silent, judging surprise.
Turning his attention to Annabelle, the silver-haired prince calls her name, prompting a polite and curious response from her.
Noticing her lingering irritation, Robert sighs and correctly guesses that she has just had another heated argument with Ian. On the opera stage, a woman performs a dramatic song about inviting pain or insults from a loved one. The singer continues her aria, passionately declaring her love for even the most difficult and toxic traits of her partner. Annabelle reflects on the strange rumors regarding Ian's preferences, wondering if his behavior is actually due to low alcohol tolerance. Sitting back in her seat, the purple-haired girl crosses her arms and watches the performance with a deeply unimpressed expression. The opera concludes with a grand declaration of eternal love, filling the theater with romantic melodies and sparkling light effects.
Robert claps politely and asks Annabelle for her thoughts, to which she replies that the show was interesting in its own way.
Giving a sarcastic thumbs up, the girl marvels at the heroine's patience while questioning the true nature of such dramatic love.
Annabelle internally scoffs at the idea of living with someone who seeks out conflict, while a flustered Ian sits nearby.
Robert laughs at the absurdity of the opera's plot, unaware that the knight beside him is feeling personally targeted by it.
The scene shifts to the crowded opera party hall, where guests mingle and gossip under the glow of ornate chandeliers.
Annabelle and Prince Robert walk through the hall together, followed closely by the ever-watchful Duke Braden and Ian.
Richard Avides, the purple-haired eldest son, approaches Annabelle with a calculated greeting as Elbin watches with a scowl.
Bowing with practiced elegance, Richard acknowledges the presence of the prince and the duke while offering a polite inquiry. The man with the monocle requests a private word with Annabelle, pointedly referring to her as his younger sister.
Annabelle is visibly shaken by the sudden and false claim of kinship, her eyes narrowing as she senses a trap.
A sudden flashback shows a younger Annabelle holding a sword after a victory, as a man celebrates her win.
The young girl's face glows with pure joy as she celebrates her long-awaited victory on the training grounds.
Her excitement is interrupted as she notices high-ranking nobles approaching her, causing her to freeze in apprehension.
Richard and Elbin Avides loom over the young, commoner-clothed girl, their expressions filled with a chilling, superior coldness.
The brothers cruelly mock the young girl, dismissively claiming that she bears no physical resemblance to their noble family. Richard pretends to offer a kind greeting, acknowledging her as his sister, despite having different mothers, in a mock display of affection. He falsely wishes her luck in becoming a member of their house, while his internal thoughts reveal a malicious intent.
The brothers burst into mocking laughter, cruelly reminding her that she is nothing more than an illegitimate child to them. Richard towers over her, harshly commanding her to know her place while blaming her for the family's social disgrace.
The flashback ends with the brothers walking away laughing, leaving a crushed Annabelle behind as they praise Ian instead.
Back in the present, Richard places a hand on Annabelle's shoulder, claiming that their father wishes to see her. Hiding her deep-seated resentment, the purple-haired girl forces a pleasant smile and agrees to accompany the manipulative Richard.
Annabelle gracefully excuses herself from Prince Robert's presence, maintaining her noble mask as she prepares to face her family.
Ian, Prince Robert, and Duke Braden walk together as the prince notes their harmonious family appearance.
Richard walks alongside Annabelle, commenting on how their group resembles a perfect, unified family in the ballroom.
Maintaining a polite mask, Annabelle forces a pleasant smile while agreeing with Richard's shallow observation. Richard feigns reflection on his past behavior, dismissively claiming he was simply young and immature back then.
Annabelle continues her performance, telling the purple-haired man she is happy he approached her first this evening. A close-up captures Annabelle's radiant, artificial smile as she skillfully navigates the tense conversation with her brother.
Internally, the purple-haired girl scoffs at his transparent attempts to use her for the crown prince's favor.
Marquise Avides greets Annabelle with an expansive, fake gesture, noting the long time since they last met. Annabelle offers a cold, formal greeting to the Marquis while guests whisper and watch them from afar.
Standing apart with his arms crossed, Elbin watches the interaction with a look of pure, unadulterated annoyance.
The Marquis puts on a public show of warmth, though his internal thoughts reveal his irritation at her presence. A glass shatters in a chilling flashback, punctuating the harsh revelation of an illegitimate child within the family. In the past, a frantic blonde woman is restrained by maids as she screams for someone to let go. A young, purple-haired boy watches in fearful silence as a hand reaches out toward him during the chaos.
The Marquis cruelly tosses a bag of gold at a red-haired woman, ordering her to never return.
The red-haired woman demands more money, refusing to allow the Marquis's child to live in poverty. Years later, the woman boastfully tells other nobles that even a commoner can rise through their child's status. Sickly and bitter in bed, the blonde woman demands that the lowly woman's daughter never win the tournament.
Returning to the present, the Marquis puts on a somber face while mentioning the death of Annabelle's mother.
Annabelle keeps her back turned to him, internally questioning his sudden and suspicious interest in her well-being. She looks back at Elbin, who remains stoic and cold while the Marquis continues his hollow performance.
Annabelle bluntly states that she understands her existence is unwelcome, catching the purple-haired man completely off guard.
Elbin's jaw drops in shock as he hears the girl's calm and direct acknowledgement of their family's resentment. A close-up shows Elbin's stunned expression as he struggles to process her lack of typical aggression. Annabelle declares she expects nothing more from the family, leaving the Marquis and his sons utterly speechless.
As she turns to leave, the Marquis's hand snaps out to grab her wrist, stopping her mid-step. The Marquis tries to soften his tone, claiming her feelings of neglect are only due to his inattention.
Desperate to find common ground, the man points out their similar ear shapes to prove their biological connection. He even absurdly claims they share the same eyelash length while Annabelle watches him with a fixed smile.
In a playful chibi-style moment, the two agree about their average eyelash lengths as flowers frame the scene.
The Marquis attempts to offer her a necklace, but Annabelle interjects to stop his hollow displays of affection.
She remains firm and composed, telling the older man that she truly does not want anything from him.
The Marquis is left visibly shaken, his face pale as he realizes his manipulation is failing to move her. Forcing a wide, unsettling grin, the Marquis insists that, as family, they are obligated to help one another.
He promises to invite her to the estate soon, and Annabelle politely agrees to the future meeting.
The high priest reflects on the situation with a look of deep sympathy, imagining Annabelle's hidden loneliness.
He questions his assistant about whether a title is truly necessary to be recognized as a legitimate child. A decorative golden diagram explains that parentage can be verified at the temple with royal and family consent.
The young assistant explains that the high-ranking priests required for such tests are often left bedridden for days. The silver-haired priest listens intently as the assistant describes why such difficult requests are usually refused. To the assistant's absolute shock, the high priest suddenly decides to set a date for the parentage test. He explains that since Annabelle is his lifesaver, he is more than willing to grant her this favor. In a chibi-style exchange, the assistant worries about a flood of requests, but the priest remains cheerfully determined. Back in the ballroom, noblewomen surround Ian and confidently predict his victory in the upcoming swordsmanship tournament. Framed by roses, the blonde knight humbly accepts their praise while focused on the events of the evening. The noblewomen discuss the strange interview given by the opera actor, noting the bizarre nature of the plot. Duke Braden approaches with a wineglass, causing Ian to jump in surprise at his father's sudden presence.
The group laughs as the Duke jokes that a sane person would naturally hide any toxic personality traits.
The scene shifts to the exterior of a large, lit mansion standing quiet under the night sky. Annabelle finally collapses inside her room, her body trembling with relief after surviving the grueling social ordeal. Lying on the floor, Annabelle rejoices that her long connections with Ian and Prince Robert are finally over.
Narrowing her blue eyes, she realizes that only one major task remains to secure her complete freedom.
She recalls her brother's past cruelty, their mocking laughter echoing as they dismissed her worth and family ties.
Clenching her fist, Annabelle vows to make the Avides Marquis pay twice for every pain they caused her.
As a new day begins, morning light spills into the room while birds chirp cheerfully outside the window. A brown-haired man bursts into Annabelle's room, shouting her name with an urgent and distressed expression. He strides toward her across the bedroom, complaining loudly about a secret she supposedly kept hidden from him. Sitting up in bed, Annabelle retorts that she isn't obligated to share every detail of her life with him. The man notes that Wydros enjoyed the welcome drink, though Annabelle insists checking up on it was unnecessary.
Gesturing with pride, the man boasts that the person he hired for the task enjoyed the experience very much.
Annabelle remains skeptical, pointing out the danger of trusting a stranger and wanting to see the results herself. The man stands firm, explaining that the person he hired is completely reliable for a very specific reason. Annabelle is struck by absolute shock as the man casually reveals that he used a slave for the job.
Grabbing his arm in a panic, she warns him that using such illegal means will surely lead to prison. Crossing his arms confidently, he dismisses her fears, claiming his friend is the capital's most powerful slave trader. Annabelle's face turns red with fury as she listens to him praise his friend's expertise in illicit activities. An internal explosion of rage punctuates her thoughts as she screams at him for his monumental idiocy. Narrated text clarifies the vile nature of magical slavery, a prohibited act that erases a person's very self. A flashback shows Robert revealing how Prince Kalon was deposed for funding illegal slave traders with political funds. While the man looks self-satisfied, Annabelle fumes over his dangerous connection to such a problematic and criminal individual. He suggests she use his friend for laundering her identity if she ever needs to hide her whereabouts. Annabelle rubs her head in exasperation, deeply questioning how anyone could ever trust such a suspicious person. The man explains his friend's unique moral code. He won't mess with anyone less handsome than himself. Clapping his hands together, he cheerfully tells her to stop worrying and focus on winning the upcoming tournament.
Annabelle announces her departure for training, while the man scolds her for slacking off and being late.
Furious at his hypocrisy, she clenches her fist and seriously considers whether she should just report his crimes. Walking through the village in her training gear, Annabelle decides against reporting him to avoid catching any personal backlash. A green-haired assistant suddenly calls out to her, catching Annabelle's attention as she walks through the market. The assistant explains that Lady Marilyn is looking for her and has been sent to bring her along. In a chibi-style exchange, the assistant mentions her original plan to visit the Duke of Wydrosi's residence. Thought bubbles reflect Annabelle's concern about causing trouble as they transition to the next part of their journey. Recalling a past duel with Ian, Annabelle wonders why Lady Marilyn would suddenly have a reason to see her. The two women decide to head to the atelier quickly, depicted in a playful and energetic chibi style. Annabelle enters the grand room to find Lady Leslie having tea with the purple-haired Marilyn. Lady Leslie greets her with an affectionate chibi embrace, explaining she heard Marilyn called for her and waited. Marilyn sits somberly, reflecting on how Caitlin was far too harsh toward her daughter in the past. She reveals that Caitlin visits every day and waits for hours just to wear her newest seasonal clothes. Sipping her tea, Lady Leslie asks if she knows Caitlin, noting that Marilyn only accepts a few customers. Marilyn smiles with a secret warmth, revealing that she and Caitlin actually gave birth at the same hospital. She describes their shared experience at a public hospital back when their businesses were still unstable and struggling. Marilyn reminds Annabelle that Caitlin also lacked financial resources during those difficult days they spent in labor together. Sitting beside her, Marilyn confirms that the child Caitlin gave birth to that day was indeed Annabelle herself.
Her expression turns deeply wistful as she begins to speak about the child she gave birth to on that same day.
Delicate white flowers frame a heartbreaking reflection on the enduring pain of a mother losing her child first. A heavy silence settles over the room as Annabelle looks at Marilyn with a mix of curiosity and sympathy. Marilyn quickly apologizes for her long-winded story, while Annabelle offers her understanding and comfort regarding the past. Transitioning back to business, Marilyn nervously asks for feedback on the new training clothes she crafted for Annabelle. Horrified by the idea of a rough fit, Marilyn insists her craftsmanship must be perfect before leaving her atelier. Annabelle showers her with chibi-style praise, marveling at the skill that makes this the best atelier in the capital. Donning her new gear, Annabelle beams with joy, declaring that everything is perfectly comfortable and requires no adjustment. Lady Leslie applauds Annabelle's new look, eagerly suggesting they craft several more sets of the same design. Marilyn agrees to prepare the clothes immediately, but her words are interrupted as the atelier's door bursts open. A dark-haired woman named Ranella, dressed in vibrant red, strides into the room demanding Marilyn's immediate attention. Ranella halts in absolute shock upon seeing Annabelle, while the girl realizes she has never met this woman before. Marilyn remains professional, reminding Ranella that the atelier is strictly exclusive and requires a prior reservation for all.
Visibly flustered, Ranella stammers an apology and quickly flees the room, promising to return another time for business. A sudden, heavy bang echoes as the door closes, leaving Marilyn confused by her friend's uncharacteristic and hasty retreat.
Lady Leslie questions the intruder's identity, and Marilyn explains that Ranella is a childhood friend from their orphanage. Marilyn recalls how Ranella assisted her during a difficult birth at a public hospital while she was completely unconscious.
Leslie asks if the woman was a medical professional, and Marilyn clarifies she was briefly a doctor's assistant.
Marilyn notes that Ranella recently returned from the rugged southern mountains, which Leslie recognizes as a very difficult region.
The dressmaker wistfully assumes Ranella left for the south because seeing Marilyn after she lost her child was unbearable.
Marilyn sighs, expressing a deep and enduring sense of sympathy for the woman who shared her most difficult days.
Annabelle observes Marilyn's bright facade, realizing the woman must silently mourn her own daughter whenever she looks at her.
Marilyn mentions that Caitlin visits daily and waits for hours, highlighting the complex relationship between the two mothers. Despite their shared past, Marilyn notes Ranella's recent financial success and her new home located at 21 Rivers Street. Eager to move on, Marilyn pivots the conversation, asking for updates on Annabelle's life and recent social exploits. Leslie leans in with a curious expression, asking exactly what the prince told Annabelle during the opera performance. In a playful chibi moment, both women are practically vibrating with excitement to hear gossip about a potential romance.
Annabelle laughs and waves her hands, clarifying that the prince only gave her a simple compliment about her appearance.
The two older women remain unsatisfied, leaning in closer to demand every single detail about the interaction that night. The atmosphere turns from playful to shocked as Annabelle mentions her recent encounter with the notorious Marquis Avidas family. A dramatic text notification highlights the name of Marquis Avidas, marking a significant and tense shift in the conversation. Leslie recalls Duke Braden mentioning that the Avidas family finally chose to acknowledge Annabelle as their own biological child. Annabelle happily confirms they apologized for their past neglect and even invited her to the estate for a formal dinner. Lady Leslie is struck with utter disbelief, her eyes widening as she processes the family's sudden and suspicious change. Fuming with rage, Leslie calls their timing transparent, noting they only care now that she is the prince's partner. Annabelle acknowledges the hollow nature of their apology, but explains she must maintain a polite facade for social reasons.
Looking at Marilyn and Leslie's sad expressions, Annabelle softly states that just hearing the apology was enough for her.
Marilyn explains her understanding, sharing how she and her husband Oscar always dreamed of having a normal, loving family. A somber flashback shows Marilyn and pink-haired Oscar weeping before a small grave, regretting their past poverty and helplessness.
A decorative text box explains how the couple became completely obsessed with accumulating wealth following the loss of their child.
A montage depicts Marilyn sewing tirelessly while Oscar works alongside her, eventually resulting in their massive fame and fortune. In another memory, the couple watches their young, pink-haired son Aaron with sadness, realizing they failed to prioritize him. Marilyn's expression is filled with regret as she admits her only memories of Aaron are of his sleeping face. Tears well in Marilyn's eyes as she concludes that she was, unfortunately, not a good parent to her second child. Marilyn quickly apologizes for dampening the mood with her tragic history, wiping her eyes as the room falls silent. Annabelle waves her hands frantically to comfort her, insisting that she doesn't mind hearing the story at all. Marilyn looks at Annabelle with renewed warmth, explaining that she shared her secret only because they are now family. Framed by soft flowers, Marilyn gives a radiant and genuine smile, her heart lightened by Annabelle's kindness and understanding. Annabelle is visibly moved, a slight blush on her cheeks as she realizes the depth of Marilyn's affection for her.
Transitioning back to the present, Marilyn curiously asks for the specific date of the upcoming dinner at the Avitas estate.
Her suggestion is cut short by a sudden, sharp bang on the table as Annabelle mentions wearing simple training clothes.
Lady Leslie stands up in a panic, waving her hands while loudly protesting that such casual attire is absolutely unacceptable.
The two older women exchange a knowing, determined look, wordlessly agreeing that Annabelle requires a complete and formal makeover.
Flames of passion ignite in Marilyn's eyes as she declares that Annabelle needs insanely beautiful clothes for the event. In a chibi-style protest, Annabelle tries to insist that her comfortable training gear is more than enough for dinner.
The two older women shout their refusal in perfect, loud unison, drowning out the girls' protests with their firm resolve.
Annabelle is transformed into a vision of elegance, wearing a massive, layered purple and black gown surrounded by blue flowers.
Arriving at the grand estate, a bowing butler welcomes Annabelle and invites her to step inside for the family dinner.
Dressed in her elegant gown, Annabelle reflects on how she originally had no reason to visit this estate.
A decorative floral border introduces the title of the novel into which Annabelle has been reborn. The story centers on a righteous saint and her divine mission to save a world in peril. In a chibi flashback, the saint and blonde Ian appear too morally upright to share any romantic chemistry.
Richard Avides, the purple-haired man with a monocle, is introduced as the villainous right hand to Prince Calonne.
Skilled in deception, Richard plots to drag the saintly female lead into the abyss of his twisted schemes.
The original narrative focused on the intense conflict between Ian and Richard over the affection of the saint.
Crown Prince Calonne grows anxious, wondering if the powerful Waitrose family will choose to side with his rival.
Richard's perfect plan involves eliminating Ian to secure the female lead and gain the prince's ultimate recognition.
A fallen chibi Annabelle realizes that Richard's villainous plot actually begins with her own downfall and imprisonment.
In the original work, Richard exploits Annabelle after she is sent to prison for her numerous crimes.
By claiming she mistreated his half-brother, Richard successfully ignites a devastating war between the rival families. The conflict escalates into a bloody war for succession, fueled by Calonne's use of forbidden dark powers.
Amidst the chaos, the saint and the mighty Ian emerge as the world's strongest hope against evil.
Sitting alone, Annabelle recalls how Ian eventually wins the love of the saint and high imperial honors. Annabelle contemplates how her role has already drastically deviated from the tragic fate described in the original novel.
Looking toward the sunset, she realizes that Richard would have manufactured a reason to fight Ian regardless of her.
Turning toward her host, Annabelle addresses the purple-haired Marquis as she prepares for the formal dinner.
The Marquis and Richard greet her warmly, asking if she has waited long for their arrival.
With a polite smile, the purple-haired men invite Annabelle to join them in the estate's grand dining hall.
Framed by flowers, Annabelle accepts the invitation with a radiant and seemingly genuine smile.
A striking visual transition marks a shift in the tone as Annabelle prepares to use her future knowledge.
Annabelle resolves to utilize the original story's secrets to navigate the dangerous situation she now faces. Elsewhere, the white-haired Lady Leslie confirms with a man that everyone is gathering at the Avides residence tonight.
Leslie grows tearful and sentimental, reflecting on the emotional weight of seeing estranged family members reunite.
A close-up reveals Leslie's intense and determined expression as she clutches a cross-shaped pendant. At the Waitrose grounds, knights practice their swordsmanship amidst the sounds of clashing steel.
Training with Ian, pink-haired Aaron admits his disappointment at missing their daily encounters while Ian enjoys the peace.
Aaron suggests sneaking into the estate to finish a mission for Annabelle, but Ian firmly shuts him down.
Ian reminds Aaron that Annabelle is busy with her dinner invitation and won't be visiting them today.
Looking flustered, Aaron insists he was merely expressing disappointment rather than actively waiting for the girl to arrive.
Aaron turns the tables, teasing a shocked Ian by asking if he was the one secretly waiting for her.
In a playful chibi exchange, Aaron teases that Ian is only upset because he was pushed down her priority list.
Aaron suddenly realizes he forgot a scheduled meeting with Lady Leslie and prepares to make a hasty exit. A quick pitter-patter sounds as Aaron runs off, leaving a contemplative Ian standing alone on the training grounds. Ian looks down with a serious expression, deep in thought about Annabelle's true motives and intentions. Recalling her training, Ian wonders if her desire to surpass him was purely to gain her family's recognition. He fears that if her goals have changed, their paths may never cross again, leaving him deeply troubled. Back at the estate, Annabelle is escorted by the Marquis and Richard toward their grand dinner table. The Marquis notes the grandeur of his dining room while secretly sensing that Annabelle still harbors resentment. Both men flatter her, claiming her presence brightens the mansion and encouraging her to visit them often.
Annabelle eyes them suspiciously, plotting to annoy the dark magic users enough to make them lose interest.
At the table, the Marquis comments on her past hardships, suggesting that happiness finally follows her difficult days.
Annabelle smiles politely while privately thinking that chronic illnesses are a more likely result of such stress.
As the maid serves her, Annabelle laments that the food Oscar prepares would be far more delicious. A heavy sigh escapes the Marquis as he notes that she has recently grown much closer to Prince Robert.
He describes the prince as sly and cautious for keeping silent despite the swirling social rumors.
Richard and the Marquis lean in with curiosity, bluntly asking if she and the prince are in a special relationship.
Annabelle pauses with a thoughtful expression, feeling the tension rise as the two men await her answer. With a coy and cryptic smile, Annabelle claims even she isn't sure, expertly dodging their probing personal questions. Marquise Avedis asks Annabelle to judge after hearing their story, claiming they are her only source of sincere advice.
Marquise Avedis and Richard watch Annabelle closely, waiting for her reaction to their transparently manipulative and flattering words.
Annabelle claps playfully, claiming the prince loves her jokes, leaving both men completely baffled and confused by her behavior. Annabelle describes her special relationship with the prince, causing Richard to sweat while he asks for more practical information.
Surrounded by dainty flowers, Annabelle taps her chin thoughtfully as she pretends to recall a crucial piece of information. A sudden, sharp bang on the table sounds as Annabelle mentions a crackdown, leaving both men in absolute shock. Flashbacks reveal Prince Robert investigating illegal activities, noting that the Marquise's ties to dark magic make him a target. Annabelle casually eats, claiming the prince needs her sword skills, though she privately doubts she's his first choice.
Marquise Avedis tries to maintain his composure while probing Annabelle for details on the prince's next planned investigation.
Annabelle yawns and rubs her eyes, stalling the two men by claiming the details are too complicated to explain.
Annabelle intentionally acts like a spoiled brat, complaining about the food and wine until Richard loses his cool.
Savoring her wine, Annabelle secretly gloats over annoying her hosts until a sudden shout for the Marquis interrupts them.
A butler arrives with a letter from the temple, surprising the Marquis with a message intended for him and Annabelle.
Annabelle's eyes widen in genuine surprise as she wonders why the temple would suddenly reach out to her now.
The Marquis's hands tremble slightly as he begins reading the formal letter addressed to the head of the Avidas family.
A vision of the high priest appears, offering a gift to commemorate the family's gathering and Annabelle's recent return. The priest praises Annabelle's pure heart, revealing his intention to settle the family's doubts once and for all.
Annabelle is struck speechless as a bold notification reveals the priest has proposed a formal public paternity test.
Holding the letter, the Marquis realizes the temple has already approved the test to confirm Annabelle's biological lineage. Sweat beads on the Marquis' face as he forced a hollow laugh, clearly unsettled by the temple's unexpected interference.
Richard explodes in anger at the ridiculous proposal, while the Marquis tries to frame the public test as good news.
Radiating artificial joy, Annabelle encourages them to reply immediately. Darkness looms over the dining hall as the Marquis and Richard realize their control over Annabelle is slipping away. Late into the night,
the Marquis clutches his head in distress while attempting to draft a response to the temple. A younger purple-haired man storms in, shouting that the idea of a public paternity test is absolutely preposterous. A flashback shows the high priest addressing a crowd, emphasizing the significance of performing the test in public. The young man continues to protest loudly while Richard remains calm, calling out to his father to intervene. In the library, Richard warns that Richard refusing the temple is impossible, suggesting they instead use Annabelle as a spy. Richard's expression turns sinister as he proposes giving Annabelle inheritance rights to manipulate her into spying on Prince Robert. Marquise Avedis falls into a deep silence, carefully considering Richard's plan to exploit Annabelle's new status for their gain. A dark smirk spreads across Richard's face as he realizes his father has finally agreed to the treacherous scheme. The scene shifts to the Grand Wide Rose Duke's residence, standing silent and majestic under the dark night sky. Inside, Duke Braden and Marilyn discuss how quickly events are unfolding now that Annabelle is linked to Prince Robert. Braden sighs, expressing his exhaustion regarding the complications of royalty and romantic relationships, much to Marilyn's amusement. Marilyn tries to downplay the romance, but Braden insists that meeting even a few times constitutes a serious relationship. Braden notes the friction between Ian and Annabelle, while Marilyn suggests that their rivalry might actually lead to love. In a chibi-style argument, Marilyn questions her husband's sanity, while Braden maintains that his fatherly intuition is correct. Marilyn sighs deeply, asking if he is seriously comparing the prince's charming approach to Ian's constant combativeness. Tears stream down Braden's face as he laments that he is the only one who truly understands Ian's feelings. Braden looks overwhelmed by the stress of managing his family and the drama surrounding Annabelle's sudden rise in status. Marilyn gently comforts her husband, though she can't help but tease him for being so clueless about social dynamics.
Marilyn reminds him that royalty rarely marries commoners, though the conversation takes a turn as they discuss the Avides family.
Braden admits that if Annabelle is officially recognized as an Avides noble, her marriage prospects will change drastically. Braden confidently predicts Ian's victory in the next competition, but Marilyn remains skeptical of the gap in their skills. Marilyn reflects on Annabelle's solid foundation, suggesting that her past lack of proper training was her only real weakness. Marilyn wonders if Annabelle would have surpassed Ian already if she had been given the same resources and support. A sudden click sounds as Annabelle returns to her home, where the brown-haired Reard is waiting to greet her. Ricard frantically warns her not to be swayed by the Marquis's wealth, his face flushed with worry for her. Annabelle sighs, reminding Reard that her dream is to win the competition, not to join a family she despises.
Reard laughs sheepishly, admitting his concern, while Annabelle teases him about his real worry over the house deed. Annabelle looks troubled as she reflects on her bold promise to the Marquis regarding obtaining royal approval.
The next morning, a white pigeon lands on a sunlit windowsill, its soft tapping sounding with a gentle tuck. A sudden click echoes as Annabelle slides the window open, startled to find the feathered visitor waiting outside. Her eyes widen in confusion as she stares at the bird, wondering why a pigeon has sought her out. Annabelle picks up a formal letter delivered by the bird, which mentions the upcoming public paternity test. A soft smile touches her lips as she reads Robert's message, confirming he has granted the necessary permission. A rhythmic scratching sounds as Annabelle pens a grateful reply to Prince Robert while the pigeon waits nearby. In the bustling marketplace, a newsboy shouts carry the shocking news of the test across the city. Disguised in a brown hood, Annabelle acknowledges Robert's political schemes while dismissing any romantic rumors. She walks through the city, determined to use her new inheritance rights to finally secure a home of her own. After 12 hours of walking, a weary Annabelle follows a real estate agent through an upscale neighborhood. Annabelle rejects various mansions, finding them either too expensive or uncomfortably close to her past.
The agent pauses, asking for her opinion as they stand before a grand white stone residence. The agent highlights a luxurious house on Narabi Street, boasting of its wealthy community and high-end security.
Annabelle admits the building is clean and well located, but her expression sours at its proximity to the Duke's home.
Shaking her head in a chibi-style protest, she initially refuses before deciding the location is perfect for her goals. Determined to start a new life, Annabelle's quiet resolve is shattered by a sudden, violent crash nearby. A loud shout for a thief rings out as a man in a green jacket leaps from a broken window. The thief sprints past a bewildered Annabelle, clutching a heavy sack filled with stolen goods. Brandishing a small blade, a furious Marilyn stands on a balcony, raining fierce insults down upon the fleeing criminal. Annabelle listens in shock as Marilyn's curses grow increasingly specific, wishing the thief a lifetime of domestic misery. In a playful chibi moment, Annabelle looks on with admiration, eager to learn such creative and dramatic insults.
A quick pitter-patter sounds as the thief gloats over his stolen wealth, certain his escape is successful.
The thief looks down at his heavy bag, already planning to sell the items and flee the country. With a swift and graceful movement, Annabelle leaps from the rooftops, descending like a hawk toward her target. The thief draws a knife in a panic, demanding to know who she is as she blocks his path.
A heavy thud echoes as Annabelle delivers a powerful punch, sending the thief reeling from the impact.
Standing amidst blooming flowers, a smug Annabelle declares that a sword would be wasted on such a petty criminal. Inside the Avides residence, a concerned Marilyn paces the floor after hearing a soft knock at her door. Marilyn looks toward the entrance with an expectant expression, wondering who has arrived at her home. Dragging the bruised and bound thief behind her, a cheerful Annabelle greets a stunned Marilyn. Marilyn's hands fly to her face in disbelief as she realizes Annabelle has captured the man who robbed her. With a bright and casual smile, Annabelle presents her captive, claiming she's simply picked him up along the way. A decorative title card marks the beginning of a new chapter in Annabelle's journey. The scene shifts to the quiet Wide Rose training grounds, where wooden dummies stand ready for practice. A sharp whistle of air sounds as Ian swings his sword with intense, focused precision. Ian completes a masterful strike, his expression serious as he continues his relentless daily training. A loud shout escapes Ian as he puts his full strength into a powerful downward sword swing. Pink-haired Aaron and his fellow knights watch in awe, speculating that the family's dedication could conquer the world. The other knights grumble in frustration, realizing they can no longer slack off while Ian is watching. Ian leans against his sword to catch his breath, confident that he still has plenty of time to improve. Ian's ears perk up as he overhears the knights discussing Annabelle's absence and the gatekeeper's sudden peace. The knights cruelly suggest that Annabelle stopped visiting because she finally accepted her inevitable defeat against Ian. Ian's face pales in shock as he internalizes the painful idea that he is no longer needed in her life. A knight asks his companion to take his finished water bottle, but she tells him to simply toss it. Ian looks devastated as the knights explain they are getting a new fountain, making the old bottle worthless. Ian watches silently as the group walks away, feeling a deep sense of rejection from their casual conversation. He reflects on the heartlessness of throwing away something that has been a constant companion for 8 years. The knights continue their walk, noting that unneeded things quickly become old, boring, and forgettable. Looking deeply pained, Ian silently begs for the world to stop telling him he is no longer needed. A close-up of vibrant yellow flowers sets a surprising tone as a shocked exclamation appears from off-screen. In a chibi-style exchange, Aaron returns the water bottle to a flustered Ian while teasing him about his behavior. Aaron is taken aback, suddenly realizing that his mother has arrived at the training grounds and is with Annabelle. Ian's eye widens in shock as he spots Marilyn approaching the training grounds while dressed in her gear.
Marilyn stands alongside Annabelle, curiously asking the young knight why he and her son are spending time together.
Inside a lavish room, Marilyn thanks Annabelle for capturing the thief who attempted to infiltrate using a fake insignia.
A glittering blue diamond brooch is revealed as the target of the thief's recent and unsuccessful robbery attempt.
Annabelle questions the habit of displaying jewels in public rooms, while Marilyn begins to explain their family's customs.
Marilyn showcases various ornate family treasures, explaining they are displayed to show history and intimidate any visiting guests. Marilyn laughs gracefully, noting that as commoners, they only put their most expensive jewel on public display. Marilyn admits she let her guard down because the thief claimed to be from the prestigious Wide Rose Night Order. Marilyn suggests that the thief should be taken directly to the Wade Rose Night Order for proper official judgment.
Annabelle thoughtfully considers the situation while Marilyn invites her to accompany them for the delivery of the prisoner. Marilyn cryptically suggests that while one should avoid interfering in bargains, inciting a good fight is always worthwhile. Marilyn's eyes sparkle with mischief as she proposes starting an internal conflict within the Wide Rose Night Order for fun.
Annabelle gives a bright thumbs up, amused by Marilyn's hidden edge and agreeing that Ian deserves a harsh lesson. Aaron questions why the thief is gagged, and Marilyn admits she did it simply to avoid hearing his insults. Aaron looks on with a sweat drop, fully aware that his mother's true nature is far from gentle or kind. Ian approaches the group with a suspicious expression, noticing the strange and unexpected camaraderie between Marilyn and Annabelle. Marilyn and Ian have a brief, tense verbal exchange, while Annabelle watches the family drama unfold with quiet interest. Annabelle explains that after 8 years of rivalry, she knows Ian's predictable behavior better than anyone else does. Annabelle firmly declares that she is done picking fights with Ian, especially on such a personally significant day. Ian looks utterly crushed and devastated, his face paling as he realizes he might no longer be needed. Chibi Aaron laughs at Ian's misery, noting that Annabelle quickly recognized his beloved, worn-out, and cherished water bottle. Aaron wipes away fake tears, dramatically explaining how sad Ian was about his cherished 8-year-old water bottle being discarded. Annabelle stoops down to retrieve the leather water bottle, recalling the night's earlier conversation about its sentimental value. Aaron is deeply moved, believing that their 8 years of constant interaction and rivalry weren't in vain after all. Annabelle explains her sudden caution, mentioning she has a crucial paternity test scheduled for tomorrow and fears jinxing it. Surrounded by a floral aura, Annabelle returns the bottle to a blushing Ian and tells him to be happy. A close-up shows their hands touching briefly as Ian reaches out to take the precious item from Annabelle's grasp. Ian stares at Annabelle in a daze, a massive blush spreading across his face from the unexpected physical contact. Ian suddenly recoils, shouting in embarrassment and turning away while Annabelle looks on in utter and complete confusion. Ian frantically asks why she touched his hand, but Annabelle reminds him they touch constantly during their sword fights. Ian continues to blush and tremble furiously while Annabelle genuinely wonders if the stoic knight has suddenly fallen ill. Ian steps toward the captured thief, determined to reclaim his family's honor and deal with the criminal immediately. Looking closely at the bound and cowering man, Ian realizes that the thief's face seems strangely familiar to him. Aaron recalls Ian previously rejecting this specific applicant during a personality interview, despite the man's good physical abilities. The surrounding knights cheer for Ian's keen insight while he tries to maintain his cool and composed facade. Ian informs Marilyn that the Wade-Rose family will personally handle the criminal who dared to tarnish their name. Annabelle decides it's time to leave, unimpressed by the group's excessive and fawning praise for Ian's basic observation skills. Marilyn suddenly reaches out and grabs Annabelle's hand, stopping the young woman from leaving the grounds just yet. With a bright smile, Marilyn insists on personally accompanying Annabelle, further solidifying their new and unexpected friendship.
Marilyn's expression turns dark and playful as she admits she isn't interested in simple or obvious justice. A grand horse-drawn carriage rattles through the city streets as the two women head toward their next destination.
Inside the carriage, Marilyn offers to drop Annabelle off at her home on Orbia Street after the day's events. Marilyn thanks Annabelle again, expressing her deep and sincere gratitude for the recovery of the stolen family jewel. Annabelle tries to downplay her heroic actions, noting that Marilyn must have been very surprised by the thief's presence. Annabelle mentions that Marilyn's husband, Mr. Oscar, should have been there to protect her, surprising the older woman.
Annabelle describes Mr. Oscar as an imposing figure whose mere glare could defeat thieves, based on the rumors she's heard.
Marilyn looks down with a mysterious smile, preparing to make a surprising and personal confession to the young Annabelle.
Annabelle is taken aback by a sudden personal confession from Marilyn, her eyes wide with curiosity.
Marilyn looks down sadly, admitting she has been quietly observing Annabelle from a distance for many years.
Inside the moving carriage, Marilyn reveals that Annabelle always stood out, making it painful to pretend she didn't see her. When Annabelle assumes she was merely an eyesore, Marilyn quickly corrects her with a gentle, sincere denial. A soft glow surrounds the thought that Marilyn's complex feelings were deeply rooted in memories of her own child. Seated across from the young knight, Marilyn gathers her courage to share a tragic secret from her past. Marilyn explains that of two children born at the same hospital, her own died while Caitlin's child survived. Looking pained, Marilyn admits feeling a sense of unfairness seeing Annabelle grow up without the love she deserved. A warm flashback depicts the life Marilyn once imagined, where she raised and cherished Annabelle as her own daughter.
Annabelle listens intently as Marilyn confesses that seeing her was an agonizing reminder of the daughter she lost.
Standing amidst a floral aura, Marilyn kindly describes Annabelle as a wonderful young lady who was always pleasant to encounter. Annabelle's gaze softens as she questions why Marilyn has chosen this specific emotional moment to reveal the truth. Surrounded by blooming flowers, Marilyn explains her belief that genuine connections require revealing even the darkest parts of one's heart. Marilyn offers a radiant smile, hoping their future interactions will be built on this new foundation of honesty.
Marilyn takes Annabelle's hands in her own, offering her sincere congratulations on the high-stakes paternity test scheduled for tomorrow.
With great warmth, Marilyn acknowledges that Annabelle is finally achieving the familial recognition she has sought for so long.
Marilyn beams with joy, promising to celebrate alongside Annabelle once the official results are confirmed the following day.
Annabelle is touched, realizing she isn't alone in her happiness as she clenches her hands in quiet anticipation.
A radiant and joyful Annabelle offers her sincere thanks to Mrs. Marilyn, her heart lightened by the unexpected support.
The sun rises over a grand, ornate estate, marking the arrival of the day that will change everything. A helpful maid assists Annabelle with her preparations, ensuring she looks perfect for the monumental event ahead. Marilyn's generous offer of a custom dress and professional styling comes to life as Annabelle undergoes her transformation. Dressed in an exquisite blue gown with intricate lace, Annabelle looks breathtaking and expresses her gratitude for the ensemble. A sharp clack of heels echoes as Annabelle descends the stairs, catching the attention of a nervous-looking Riyadh. Annabelle questions why Riyadh is lingering, reminding him that the important retirement ceremony is about to commence. Riyadh looks flustered and avoids eye contact, claiming he has a brief, urgent meeting with someone else first.
Annabelle is suspicious of his vague answer, wondering exactly who would require his attention at such a critical time.
Annabelle notes Riyadh's lack of joy, but he focuses on his determination to win the upcoming swordsmanship competition. The scene shifts as Riyadh insists Annabelle go ahead, promising to join her at the venue shortly. Isla Square is filled with festive decorations and a bustling crowd, all gathered for the grand public celebration.
A polite attendant guides Annabelle into a private tent, asking her to wait while the final arrangements are made.
Settling onto a chair,
Annabelle hums to herself while imagining a peaceful future living as a neighbor to Marilyn. She reflects on how her past desire for inheritance rights has shifted toward a focus on her own happiness.
A sudden, oppressive chill fills the tent as Annabelle senses several hostile presences closing in on her location.
A sharp metallic shink sounds as Annabelle draws a hidden dagger from her thigh, ready to defend herself. Standing defiantly in her elegant gown, Annabelle faces a group of hooded assassins who have surrounded her in the tent.
A lavender-haired man in a cloak shouts in frustration as Annabelle easily outmaneuvers his group of trained killers.
Annabelle mocks their numbers, stating only Ian is a worthy opponent, just as a familiar voice calls her name.
Aaron bursts into the tent with a flourish of his sword, ready to strike down anyone threatening Annabelle.
Aaron explains he spotted the suspicious group while out for snacks and rushed over to provide immediate assistance. A sharp clang of steel rings out as Aaron defends Annabelle, jokingly worrying about his mother's handmade dress.
Relieved and amused by his dramatic entrance, Annabelle thanks Aaron for protecting both her and her new clothes.
The lavender-haired leader groans in defeat as his failed assassins lie scattered across the floor around him.
Annabelle confronts the man, laughing at the idea that 16 assassins could ever hope to capture a master knight.
The unmasked man shouts in a desperate rage, questioning how his blood relation doesn't entitle him to inheritance rights.
Annabelle dismisses his tantrum with a shrug, telling him to take his complaints to the imperial law instead.
The man flees the scene in a panic as Annabelle watches him go with a satisfied and victorious expression.
Aaron wonders aloud if the Marquis family has more incompetent siblings waiting to cause trouble in the future.
Aaron encourages Annabelle to stay positive for her big day, despite the family's violent attempt to stop her. With a wide, cheerful grin, Aaron reaches out to guide Annabelle toward the official recognition she truly deserves.
Floating in a cloud-filled sky, Chibi Aaron mentions his presence-hiding practice, much to the curiosity of a Chibi Annabelle.
Aaron deviously plans to eavesdrop on Ian's shower singing, and Annabelle suggests getting caught to make the humiliation even worse.
Amidst the bustle of a lively marketplace, people whisper about Aaron as he moves through the crowd with purpose.
While walking together, Annabelle asks Aaron why a master knight would choose to sit out the upcoming swordsmanship tournament. Aaron dismisses the competition as too much effort for a predictable result, while Annabelle notes his skills are better suited for combat. Aaron reflects on Ian's lack of ambition, finding it humorous that the stoic blonde knight is perfectly content with his current rank. With a joyful laugh, Aaron admits he finds Ian boring, but takes great pleasure in teasing him thanks to Annabelle's influence.
Annabelle teases Aaron about his differing opinions with his lord, jokingly worrying about the bleak future of the Wydross Knights.
In a playful exchange, Chibi Annabelle offers to teach Aaron a few things, and he jokingly accepts her as his master.
Annabelle smiles softly, her heart warming as she realizes she has finally made a genuine friend her own age. The two stand outside the grand venue, the atmosphere tense as they prepare for the high-stakes ceremony that will change everything.
Aaron reaches out toward Annabelle, acknowledging her new path as she steps closer to reclaiming her noble family name.
Surrounded by beautiful roses, Aaron offers a bright smile and looks forward to a future tea party with her.
Inside the grand hall, Aaron waves from his seat while Annabelle watches, ready to begin the long-awaited paternity test ceremony.
A polite attendant informs Annabelle it is time to take the stage, her heart racing as the monumental moment finally arrives.
Annabelle's gaze shifts to her father, Marquis Avides, as she anticipates the wealth and independence her new name will bring.
Determined and cold, Annabelle vows to cut all ties with the Avides family as soon as she receives her inheritance money.
The courtyard is filled with attendees as the official retirement ceremony for the esteemed High Priest Oriens Fellerpoff begins.
Two women in the crowd gossip about Annabelle's beauty, noting her improved mood and radiant appearance in her blue gown.
Nobles speculate on Annabelle's relationship with Prince Robert, suspecting she intends to use their friendship for her own political gain.
Ian listens in quiet despair as gossips point out the private meals and theater visits shared between Annabelle and the prince.
The group notes that the prince's help with the paternity test is a clear sign of their deep and undeniable connection. One woman suggests that marriage might be their next step, causing a shocked and distraught Ian to stare in utter silence. As the nobles wonder what could stop a royal union, Ian visibly vibrates with a mix of shock, jealousy, and confusion. The dark-haired woman mocks Ian's sour expression, while he struggles to respond through his internal storm of complicated emotions. Prince Robert looks at Ian, questioning his lack of interest, and jokingly stating he'd date himself if he were a woman. Ian is completely flabbergasted by the prince's bizarre logic, finding the entire conversation to be an awkward and confusing mess. Robert finds his own joke hilarious, while his companions look on with a mix of amusement and second-hand embarrassment for Ian. When asked about his plans after the ceremony, Ian gives a vague answer about a social gathering to hide his secret mission. Ian maintains his stoic facade, but the suspicious dark-haired woman is certain he is keeping a deep and important secret. A flashback reveals Prince Robert requesting Ian's help for a dangerous investigation into the spread of forbidden black magic. Standing in a grand study, Robert asks Ian to help for the sake of the world, emphasizing the true gravity of their task. Ian reflects on his choice to help the prince for justice, yet he wonders why their interactions have suddenly become so awkward. A holy light begins to emanate as the high priest gathers his remaining divine power for the final act of the ceremony.
High Priest Oriens joins the hands of the Marquis and Annabelle, preparing to relay the final judgment of the holiest deity.
A brilliant flash of divine energy fills the stage, signaling the moment of truth in the high-stakes paternity test. As the light fades, the words, "the chosen child," appear, leaving Annabelle and the witnesses in a state of stunned silence. Annabelle finds herself in a celestial realm, questioning if the deity's words are truly referring to the results of her test. In a surreal vision, Annabelle is lifted by an enormous glowing hand, looking out at the stars with wide, shocked eyes. High above the mortal world, Annabelle demands to know what it truly means to be chosen by such a divine presence. A glowing aura surrounds the message that one day her life was completely turned upside down by a mysterious force. Annabelle is shaken, realizing that the memories of her past life are being revealed by the deity's overwhelming presence. A massive book appears, explaining that worlds are connected through stories, and she was chosen to save this world. Annabelle's mind races as she recalls the novel's original plot, where Ian was destined to meet the heroine today. A mental vision shows Ian and a brown-haired woman looking over a bridge, a destined encounter she has just disrupted. Startled that the deity can hear her thoughts, Annabelle worries if changing the future so recklessly is truly a safe path. Annabelle doubts her importance, but the divine voice insists the world needs her help despite not being a main character. Clasped hands glow as the deity reveals that the main characters alone are not enough to completely save the world. Annabelle is horrified to learn that the end of the novel she read was not the true end of the world. Staring in disbelief, Annabelle asks how a world with a happy ending could still be in such terrible hidden danger. A skeletal hand covers a figure's eyes as a warning about unavoidable future threats is issued. Annabelle clutches her head in distress, desperately questioning the true origin of the world's black magic. A deer skull rests upon a dark magical circle, representing evil beings that transcend their own worlds. Annabelle realizes that the book she once read contained no information about the source of this darkness.
A mystical book explains how tragedies survive within stories and travel between worlds to create new horrors.
The divine voice explains that only Annabelle, a reincarnated soul, has the power to identify and destroy them. As the presence begins to fade, It mentions 3 distinct origins of black magic hidden within this world. A brilliant flash of divine light erupts as the deity promises to grant Annabelle her heart's truest desire. Gasped breaths sound as Annabelle's consciousness snaps back into her physical body, her eyes wide with shock. Marquise of Vedes demands to know the results of the paternity test, unaware of the revelation about to unfold. The Marquis stands frozen with his mouth agape, his face paling as he processes the unbelievable outcome. High Priest Oriens and Annabelle share a look of utter bewilderment as the divine truth settles over them. The noble audience erupts into frantic whispers, questioning the identity of the woman they thought was a noble. A flashback shows the Marquis with Caitlin, his longtime mistress, whom he trusted implicitly despite her red hair. Caitlin is shown holding a baby, receiving the Marquise's wealth without ever facing any suspicion regarding the child. Annabelle notes the subtle difference in her hair color compared to the traits of the Avides family line.
She previously assumed her vibrant lavender hair was simply influenced by Caitlin's red hair, but she was wrong.
Shaken to her core, Annabelle trembles while questioning who she truly is if she isn't an Avides. High Priest Oriens confirms that Annabelle and the Marquis are not biological relatives, leaving the room in chaos. Marilyn cries out in horror, her hands covering her mouth as a terrifying realization takes hold of her. Horrified tears fall as Marilyn stares into the distance, realizing the true gravity of a past hospital encounter. A vision shows 2 babies born on the same day, both possessing similar light purple hair and blue eyes.
Marilyn recalls Ranella, a struggling woman who once spoke of using medical knowledge to rake in massive wealth.
Ranella left the hospital abruptly with a suitcase, a move Marilyn once mistook for grief over a dead child. Trembling with shock, Marilyn fears Ranella committed a heinous crime just as her pink-haired sons rushed toward her. A sharp sound echoes as Marilyn's sons call out for her, their faces etched with worry for their mother. With a heavy slump, Marilyn falls to her knees before the High Priest, the Marquis, and a stunned Annabelle. Marilyn begs for another paternity test, her voice breaking as she desperately pleads for the truth to be found. Clutching her chest, Marilyn cries out in agony, begging for mercy for both herself and for Miss Annabelle. Annabelle looks down at the sobbing woman, completely speechless as the pieces of the puzzle begin to fit. Heavy sobbing fills the air as the High Priest gently places his hands on Marilyn's shoulders to steady her. Marilyn explains the potential swap, fearing Caitlin stole her child to secure the Marquise's money after her own died. The room remains tense as Marilyn continues to weep, her hope for her lost child finally coming to light. High Priest Oriens regretfully explains that the deity summoning test cannot be performed again due to drained divine power. Marilyn gasps in despair, realizing she cannot get immediate divine proof of her biological connection to Annabelle. Annabelle looks at the grieving woman with a somber expression, realizing her own life is shifting once again. Marilyn makes a heartfelt plea, asking Annabelle to become her daughter, regardless of what any future test says. Annabelle tries to calm the emotional woman, reminding her that this remains a suspicion until it can be proven.
Marilyn insists that Caitlin and Ranella deserve divine punishment for the terrible deed they committed so long ago.
Annabelle considers the horrifying possibility that she was the child swapped to replace the Marquise's stillborn daughter. Pleading with every ounce of her soul, Marilyn holds on to Annabelle, begging her to accept a new family bond. Annabelle looks away, her mind racing as she resolves to find the truth without making any hasty promises. She reflects on Marilyn's sincere heart and the kindness the woman has shown her throughout their recent friendship. A fabric-straining grip reveals Annabelle's internal conflict as she worries about making Marilyn regret such a bold decision. A young woman with long brown hair and pink eyes stands near the stairs, watching the dramatic scene unfold.
Annabelle's gaze is drawn to the newcomer, sensing a strange and familiar presence emanating from the young girl.
A vision of an open book identifies the brown-haired girl as the original story's heroine,
Cecianne, real life.
Cecianne introduces herself as a divine apprentice, claiming she has the power to help resolve their current crisis.
Annabelle looks at Cecianne with unwavering certainty, startling the apprentice by immediately trusting her mysterious offer of help.
The two women face each other on the grand staircase, ready to forge a new path through the changing story.
Cecianne expresses her gratitude toward Annabelle, moved that someone believed her seemingly nonsensical claims at first sight.
Annabelle and Cecianne hold hands as a tearful Marilyn looks on, overwhelmed by the unfolding divine miracle.
As the divine ritual reaches its peak, Cecianne stands between the two women, surrounded by a radiant halo.
A gentle, luminous hand strokes Annabelle's lavender hair, promising to grant the deep desires of her heart. The divine presence leans in, whispering a final assurance of her blessing as the ethereal vision begins to fade.
A sudden, bright flash illuminates the courtyard, accompanied by a golden butterfly and shimmering flowers.
Annabelle stands amidst the fading light, her eyes closed as she processes the weight of the deity's profound gift.
A sharp gasp echoes through the hall as the audience erupts into frantic whispers over the shocking outcome.
Marilyn trembles with raw emotion, her green eyes welling with tears as the incredible truth finally takes hold.
High Priest Oriens clutches his head in disbelief, his face pale from the exhaustion of the divine manifestation.
With a desperate cry, Marilyn reaches out toward Annabelle, her voice cracking as she calls for her child.
A noblewoman wonders where Annabelle is going as the distraught Marilyn collapses into a fit of heavy sobbing.
Leslie stands up abruptly, insisting he must follow Annabelle, while the other blonde nobles look on in concern. Resolving to follow his sister, the pink-haired Leslie asks the others to care for their fainted father.
Ian surprises the group by stepping forward, claiming that he will be the one to pursue the departing Annabelle.
Surrounded by blooming roses, Ian coolly asserts that he is the most capable person to catch up with her. In a comical moment, Leslie is touched by Ian's unexpected concern, though Ian remains hilariously awkward and stoic.
Leslie excitedly directs Ian toward the dress shop, promising to wait there with their parents for Annabelle's arrival.
With a sharp turn, Ian confirms he will bring her back, his expression hardening with a sense of duty. Ian sprints through the streets, mindful of his appointment with Prince Robert, but prioritizing finding Annabelle first.
Breathing heavily, Annabelle runs through the manor, her face etched with a mix of fury and intense desperation.
She bursts into a room only to find it completely ransacked, the chaos clearly showing Riyadh's treacherous actions. Annabelle gazes at the wreckage, cursing Riyadh for looting the house and even pillaging her own personal quarters.
A heavy thud sounds as Annabelle finds her wardrobe empty, realizing Riyadh stole the dresses Marilyn made.
Grinding her teeth, she fumes over the loss of the clothes crafted by the mother she never knew. She reflects on how Caitlin and Riyadh shamelessly enjoyed the luxury meant for her while she suffered for years. Looking at her shoes, Annabelle realizes that many strange signs about her false family were hidden in plain sight. She recalls how the Avides family lacked her sword talent and never resembled her, highlighting their lack of connection.
Covering her eyes, Annabelle laughs bitterly at her own foolishness for ever believing she belonged to such people.
A sharp crack sounds as she stares at a broken portrait. Frustrated, she cannot punish the already dead Caitlin.
With a metallic ring, Annabelle draws her black sword, her resolve hardening as she prepares for a hunt.
Now dressed in practical gear, she stands tall with her blade, her eyes burning with a cold, vengeful fire. The clerk informs her that Riyadh cashed everything out and fled this morning, confirming the man's cowardice.
A cold sigh escapes her as she notes that Riyadh acted exactly as expected of a heartless opportunist. Recalling a tip about slave dealers, Annabelle realizes Riyadh is likely hiding with his criminal contact in the capital.
She plans to use her knowledge of the original story to infiltrate the store's basement and find him.
Just as she turns to leave, a hand suddenly seizes her wrist, causing Annabelle to gasp in total shock.
Ian stands before her, panting heavily from his frantic search, his red eyes fixed on her with intense relief. Ian demands to know why she disappeared, his voice tight with the worry he felt while searching for her. Stunned into silence, Annabelle stares at him blankly, unable to process the idea that he was actually worried. Flustered, Ian quickly backtracks, claiming it was only the people of Rainfield who were concerned for her safety. Annabelle looks away, her voice somber as she asks if everyone else is okay after the Marquis's collapse. Ian sighs deeply, acknowledging her feelings, but urging her to return to the real family that loves her. She snaps back with a fierce glare, demanding a way to find Riyadh immediately so she can deliver punishment. Ian asks if she has considered her mother's pain, leaving Annabelle completely frozen as the realization hits her.